Chapter 121. When Madame Qi heard that Ning Shu refused to help her, her face twisted. Ning Shu shouted bitterly, "Why?" Ning Shu said indifferently, "Your son, Lu Rui, was killed by you. As a mother, you don't know how to protect your son. You only care about glory and wealth." "No, Rui was killed by Lu Zhijiu." Madame Qi heard Ning Shu's words and refuted fiercely. "Although your son can't be the emperor, he is still a prince. However, you want to uphold justice for your son. It would be strange if Lu Zhijiu let your son go." Ning Shu said indifferently. After Lu Bang's death, Madame Qi was forced by Lu Zhijiu to wear prison clothes and iron shackles. She was locked in Yongchun Alley and pounded rice day and night. Madame Qi couldn't stand it anymore and made a song. She wanted her son to uphold justice for her and leave here. Madame Qi's soul became dimmer and dimmer. It was estimated that she was about to leave the system space and disappear completely. The system echoed Madame Qi's roar. "It's not like that. It's not like that at all." Ning Shu let out a long breath. Ning Shu didn't want to care about this kind of mess. Also, Ning Shu was definitely on the side of the legal wife. Even if it was reasonable and legal in ancient times, Ning Shu was still very disgusted. As a rich young lady, Lu Zhijiu married Lu Bang, who had nothing. She washed and cooked for Lu Bang and gave birth to children for him. She was not beautiful and was even captured by Xiang Yu as a hostage for 2 years. She waited bitterly for Lu Bang, but Lu Bang and Madame Qi were like gods. Madame Qi enjoyed glory and favor. Lu Zhijiu had nothing but the position of empress. Madame Qi was ambitious. She encouraged Lu Bang to depose the crown prince and make her son the crown prince. LVG was vicious and merciless, but she had changed from a pampered, intelligent, and innocent young girl to this. Behind every heartless and ruthless woman, there was a heartless man. Too much hurt, disappointment, and despair had turned a soft heart into a cold and hard iron. If it was Ning Shu himself, he would do the same. He would kill Lu Bang first. This kind of ungrateful grassroots emperor was simply too disgusting. "Let's look at the next quest," Ning Shu said. 2333 quickly said, "Ning Shu, you can't reject this mission. No matter what kind of mission it is, you must accept it." "Okay, I got it." Ning Shu nodded. As soon as Ning Shu's voice fell, a figure slowly appeared in the space. When the figure gradually became clear, Ning Shu was stunned when he saw the soul. It was a woman, a very beautiful woman. Her soul seemed to be stronger than Lu Zhi's soul. It was like a real person standing in front of Ning Shu. Her appearance was dazzling and captivating. The fabric of her clothes was excellent. There was no wind in the space, but the clothes on her body seemed to be fluttering, giving people the feeling that she was floating in the air like an immortal. This was the first time Ning Shu had seen such a beautiful woman. Her face was pure and innocent, but her body was very hot. Her waist was very thin, and the belt she wore made her chest even more turbulent. With such good looks, there was no hurdle that couldn't be overcome. As the saying goes, 3 points of fate, 7 points of hard work, and 90 points of appearance. Like cannon fodder, she could just grow as long as she wanted. Ning Shu felt that this woman was not simple. He didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling. The woman who entered the space looked around, then looked at Ning Shu and said, "You are the one who will counterattack for me." Her voice was very soft. When Ning Shu heard this voice, he shivered. She was a woman, and when she heard this voice, she couldn't control herself, let alone a man. Her voice was filled with charm. It was soft and carried a hint of innocence. It was simply too alluring. "I am." Ning Shu nodded and said. Hearing Ning Shu's words, the woman quickly walked towards Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at the woman in front of him. Her body was slightly swaying, and her waist was so thin that Ning Shu was afraid that she would break it. The woman reached out and held Ning Shu's hand, and shouted, elder sister, help me. Ning Shu looked at the flawless face in front of him. Ning Shu's mouth was dry, and he asked, how can I help you? I beg you to help me. I don't want to be reincarnated. I really can't stand it. I would rather be reincarnated. If elder sister can counterattack for me and let me escape the fate of reincarnation, Yen Luo is willing to give up all of my soul force. I just want to be reincarnated. Ning Shu heard Yen Luo's words, and his heart suddenly thumped. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. He asked, speak clearly. My name is Mu Yen Luo. I am the daughter of a country's prime minister. Mu Yen Luo said. She was a perfect example of a rich and beautiful woman. My mission is to get rid of those men. I've really had enough of those men. I've been reborn 3 times. I thought I could get rid of these men, but I can't. I wanted to escape the first time I was reborn, but I still fell into the hands of those men. The second time I was reborn, I wanted to hang myself, but I was still saved by those men. Just like in my first life, I'm still entangled with those men. Living 3 lives, no wonder her soul force was so strong. Mu Yen Luo looked at Ning Shu with eyes full of hope and expectation. Elder sister, I want to get rid of this fate. Of course, it would be better if you could teach those men a lesson. Ning Shu's mouth twitched, and he asked, how many men are entangled with you? Mu Yen Luo's eyes were very clear, and she said, several. Ning Shu was speechless. So, what kind of mission was this? 2333, I don't want to accept this mission, Ning Shu said to the system. No, you refused the last mission. You can't refuse this one, 2333 said. Otherwise, Ning Shu will be obliterated. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu turned his head, and Mu Yen Luo said with a ferocious expression, I accept this mission. Thank you, elder sister. Mu Yen Luo's face lit up with a smile, and she looked even more beautiful than before. It felt like the whole room was lit up by her smile. She was so damn beautiful. Mu Yen Luo was very happy to hear Ning Shu accept the mission. Before she left, Ning Shu said, elder sister, you are a good person. The others don't want to accept my mission, or they failed it. Thank you. Ning Shu, come back. Let's talk about it. After Mu Yen Luo left, Ning Shu felt even worse. He asked 2333, what's going on? Mu Yen Luo is the female lead of a world, 2333 said. It's just that she's been reborn twice, and she doesn't want to live the life of being reborn anymore. So, she's looking for players to counterattack. She's the female lead, and I'm just a cannon fodder. What the hell am I supposed to counterattack? Ning Shu said in a huff. Chapter 122. She was supposed to be the cannon fodder, but now she was going to be the heroine's counterattack. 2333 said, I told you this is a special mission. After this mission, you can only be cannon fodder. Damn it. How could it be so direct? It even said that it had to take care of the player's emotions. This was how the system took care of people. Ning Shu sat down and began to absorb the materials in the space to enrich his soul. When he had points, he would immediately exchange them for the secret book of soul cultivation. This was too slow. After some time, Ning Shu opened his eyes and saw that his soul had been enriched a lot. He was very satisfied and asked, 2333, are you still there? Yes. As soon as Ning Shu's voice fell, 2333's voice sounded. Obviously, he had been waiting for Ning Shu to wake up. Ning Shu said, can you change your name? 2333 said, no, my main brain has been with this number since birth. It can't be changed. Ning Shu thought, what the hell, he felt that this number was full of malice. Forget it, there was no need to care about these trivial things. Ning Shu said, let's enter the mission. Okay. In an instant, Ning Shu felt that his head was heavy and his feet were light. He felt dizzy and wanted to vomit. When this feeling disappeared, Ning-Shu opened his eyes. The room was very dark. There were candles on the table and a maid was sleeping on the recliner. She was probably on night watch. Ning-Shu rubbed his head and looked out the window. It was very dark now. Ning-Shu decided to accept the plot first. Prime Minister Mu of Donghua Nation had a daughter named Mu Yenluo. She was born with a natural charm and was devastatingly beautiful. Many people had come to propose marriage to her, wondering who could win her heart. But what was unexpected was that Donghua Nation was destroyed overnight. The Prime Minister's residence was attacked. Prime Minister Mu told his daughter to escape, and then he fled in the opposite direction. Mu Yenluo, who had just escaped from the Prime Minister's residence, was caught by a general. Then, the general raped her and started a shameless life. Mu Yenluo gradually gave her heart to the general, but then a lord took a fancy to Mu Yenluo. However, the general directly gave Mu Yenluo to the lord. Mu Yenluo was so heartlessly tortured by the general that her heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys were all moved. Then she and the lord started a love-hate relationship. I don't love you. You can have my body, but you can't have my heart. The general, who lost Mu Yenluo, found out that he loved Mu Yenluo. The general negotiated with the lord, and then something even more shameful. Ning-Shu, Mu Yenluo was heartbroken. She ran away and met many men along the way. There were imperial merchants, divine doctors, martial arts alliance chiefs, scholars, and demonic sect leaders. Towards the end of the story, these men all fell in love with Mu Yenluo. After a discussion, they decided to share Mu Yenluo and live a more shameless life. Fuck. Ning-Shu shuddered at the sight of this string of people. Most importantly, every man Mu Yenluo passed by was tormented both physically and mentally. Then, the men would come to their senses and realize that the one they loved was Mu Yenluo. They no longer had any feelings for other women. It was heartbreaking, miscarriages, misunderstandings, and physical abuse. It was simply too tragic. This was a world of NP meat. It was a world of literary abuse. No wonder Mu Yenluo was able to counterattack. After experiencing such a life 3 times, these men were definitely masochistic, and Mu Yenluo was definitely a masochist. Even in such a situation, they could still live happily together. Ning-Shu counted with his fingers how many men there were. The valiant general, the overbearing lord, the black-bellied imperial merchant, the indifferent divine doctor, the coquettish sect leader, the righteous leader, and the scholar. Well, there were 7 in total. 1 night per person, just enough for a week. Ning-Shu wanted to go home. This world of filth. Ding. Ning-Shu, wax, I am 2333. A voice suddenly appeared in Ning-Shu's mind. Lost in thought, Ning-Shu almost jumped out of bed. What is it? Ning-Shu asked coldly. Wax? Ha ha ha. 2333 didn't waste any time and said, since you are helping Mu Yenluo to escape her fate, you can't let these men take advantage of her. Mu Yenluo's 3 lives have been tortured by these men. So Ning-Shu, if you want to get more points, you better torture these men too. The higher the torture, the more points you will get. This mission is difficult because the rules of heaven and earth are strong. Mu Yenluo is set in stone. Even if she is reborn, she can't escape her fate. 2333 explained. Ning-Shu suddenly understood. It was like a tape that had been put on. It could only follow the plot. But if the plot deviated, the rules of heaven and earth would soon return to the starting point. Ning-Shu felt a sudden pressure. Damn, why was the mission so difficult? Could it be that she picked the leftovers of others? Fuck. All in all, this mission was to change Mu Yenluo's fate. Moreover, he had to torture these men. Of course, if he didn't kill these scumbags, would he keep them for the new year? Ning Shu sat up on the bed and prepared to practice his peerless martial arts. Without strength, he could only be slept with. Ning Shu didn't want to be slept with by these men. After a long time, Ning Shu sat on the bed and took a deep breath. Ning Shu sadly found that this body couldn't practice martial arts at all. After practicing for almost 4 hours, Ning Shu found that there was no qi in his body. Ning Shu was so anxious that he started to sweat. Without strength, how could he just wait to be raped by these men? Ning Shu expressed that he was a pure person. How could he do such a thing? This body can't practice martial arts. Ning Shu, give up, give up. 2333's voice echoed in Ning Shu's mind. His heart was tired. That's right, the female lead just had to wait to be raped. After practicing her peerless martial arts, she would be incomparably powerful. How could she be raped by men? A soft body was easy to be pushed over. A little resistance was fun, but it was impossible for the female lead to possess great strength. Ning Shu sat on the bed and sighed. Suddenly, the door was kicked open with a bang. Ning Shu was startled. The maidservant who was sleeping on the recliner was so frightened by the loud noise that she fell to the ground. She got up from the ground at a loss and saw Ning Shu sitting on the bed. She shouted, Miss, what's wrong? How the hell would I know what's going on? Ning Shu looked at the door. A man walked in with a group of people behind him. Yen Luo, the army is attacking the city. Let's hurry and leave. A handsome middle-aged man walked in. Ning Shu said anxiously. So it was the original owner's father. He thought it was the general who attacked the city. Ning Shu still hadn't calmed down. Why aren't you packing up for the young miss? Prime Minister Mu shouted at the pale-faced servant. The servant hurriedly packed up. Prime Minister Mu looked at Ning Shu and sighed. Donghua has fallen. Ning Shu also sighed. This was the beginning of the original owner's tragedy. Father, where are we going? Ning Shu didn't think he could escape. The plot was quite powerful. Chapter 123. The sky of the apocalypse was gray, and the whole world seemed to be shrouded in dust. Viruses and zombies roared, and the whole environment was filled with despair, greed, and the infinite magnification of human nature. The law of the jungle was that the strong were respected. Struggling to survive, the strong became stronger, and the weak were eliminated. In front of the base, there were zombies roaring without reason in all directions, and crazily rushing toward the base. Human and human-like zombies were floating in the air above the base. Young Phoenix looked at Hua Duo, and scolded, Hua Duo, do you have any shame? You come here every day to attack our base. What do you want? Xiao Ming, who was in a suit, stood next to Hua Duo, Xiao Ming ignored young Phoenix and turned to Hua Duo, and said, Hua Duo, move aside. I'll deal with this woman. Hua Duo, shook her head and looked at young Phoenix. She said, I'll do it myself. Young Phoenix pushed her into a group of zombies and wanted to kill her, so she went against Hua Duo, Hua Duo, only remembered being pushed into a group of zombies when they found the gene fluid. She didn't know how she became a zombie, and there was a zombie called Xiao Ming beside her. She didn't know who gave him the name, but Xiao Ming said she gave him the name. Hua Duo said she wouldn't give him such a name. Xiao Ming might as well be called Xiao Dong. Xiao Ming nodded and said to Hua Duo, if you can't beat her, run. Don't fight with this woman. She's stronger than before. I'll run. Hua nodded. Although Xiao Ming was a zombie, he was very black-bellied and was a thick-skinned person. Young Phoenix, you pushed me into a group of zombies. I'll take revenge today. Hua Duo, raised her fist and punched young Phoenix. Young Phoenix sneered, you're just lucky to become a mutated zombie, and you think you've become Superman. No matter what you become, you're useless. You're just giving me nuclei. Hua Duo didn't say anything. She dodged young Phoenix's icicles and fought with young Phoenix. Hua Duo couldn't understand. They were all from the special agent team, and they were all trained by the officer. How could young Phoenix and Lone Wolf attack the officer? He was simply a human-faced beast. You're nothing but a slut. You're even called a goddess by others. Don't you feel guilty? Why are you pretending to be so pure? Hua Duo cursed as she fought with young Phoenix. Young Phoenix's eyes turned red when she heard Flower's words. This was because she had to sacrifice her body when she was doing quests. It was not even her first time. In order to complete quests, this was necessary. In the past, young Phoenix did not care, but now that she was the goddess of the base, young Phoenix was very concerned about such a dark history. She was now a strong person of the base, so how could she have such an imperfect history? Hua, if you continue to talk nonsense, do you believe that I will tear your mouth off? Young Phoenix said through gritted teeth. Especially when she saw the strange look in the eyes of the people around her, young Phoenix gritted her teeth and looked at Flower Duo, with resentment. Hua, smiled as she looked at the angry young Phoenix. When she saw young Phoenix send out dense and large icicles, she quickly dodged and shouted to Xiao Ming, I can't beat her. Let's run. Xiao Ming was fighting with Lone Wolf. Then, he turned around and ran. He pulled Hua and ran quickly. In an instant, they were out of sight. Young Phoenix was so angry that her face turned red. Looking at Hua, who ran away, she was so angry that she started to bombard the zombies below. Hua, if I don't kill you, I, young Phoenix, am not human. Young Phoenix was almost angered to death by Hua, For no reason, she would bring a large wave of zombies to harass the base. When the situation was not right, she would immediately run away. Lone Wolf frowned and said to young Phoenix, this zombie and Hua even built a base. It seems that the one just now should be the zombie king. Young Phoenix was even angrier. This is so annoying. Moreover, the base built by Hua and the zombie king was not far from here. Young Phoenix felt that Hua did it on purpose. However, humans were no match for the endless and tireless zombies. Otherwise, young Phoenix would have attacked them long ago. Xiao Ming and Hua ran for a while and stopped. Then, they slowly walked towards the base. Hua saw a car parked not far in front of them. A person leaned against the car door and looked up at her and Xiao Ming. His expression was very cold. He wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose. He was tall and slender, and his black windbreaker swayed with the breeze. Hua Duo felt his sharp gaze grazing her face. Hua Duo even had the feeling that she was being seen through. Hua could feel that this man was not a psychic, but he had a deep and unfathomable temperament. Roar! Xiao Ming roared at the school doctor. He looked at him warily. After a moment of hesitation, he was ready to pounce on the school doctor and take out his heart. Hua grabbed Xiao Ming, who was about to rush over. Xiao Ming turned his head and looked at Hua. Hua said, he didn't attack us. Let's let him go. Xiao Ming frowned. In the end, he did not make a move. However, he looked at the person leaning against the car with a serious expression. His muscles were trembling, ready to attack at any time. Let's go. Hua pulled Xiao Ming away. She looked back at the man. He slightly pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose. Under the sunlight, the glasses reflected a white light. The school doctor raised his eyebrows and finally sneered. He opened the car door and started the car. The car kicked up a cloud of dust. After a while, the car disappeared. Hua sighed in relief when they were far away from the strange man. Although she did not know why, she felt uncomfortable when she saw the man. Xiao Ming and Hua walked into the base. This base was built by Xiao Ming. It was filled with mutated zombies. Seeing Xiao Ming and Hua the mutated zombies all knelt on the ground to show their allegiance. The law of the jungle among zombies was clearer than among humans. Hua that man seemed to know you. Xiao Ming thought about it and felt that the man should know Hua Hua shook her head and said, I don't know him. Humans and zombies fought each other for survival. Hua was at odds with Lone Wolf and Young Phoenix. Lone Wolf, who was angry, also organized people to fight back. In short, you hit me, I hit you. Xiao Ming's strength was getting stronger. He did not seem to like eating hearts. He always gave the corpses of psychics to the zombies below. Xiao Ming was becoming more and more like a normal person. No one could tell that he was a zombie just by looking at his appearance. Perhaps he was already a human, a high-level human. Chapter 124. Also, why do we have to run? Can't we just surrender? Ning Shu asked. With Prime Minister Mu's status in Donghua, there was still a way out if they surrendered. Prime Minister Mu's handsome face stiffened. Ning Shu said sternly, your father is a scholar. How can I do something so unprincipled? Ning Shu was speechless. If they were really unprincipled, why did they have to run? They might as well stay and live and die with Donghua. They would definitely be famous in history. They would be proud and unyielding. They would be afraid of losing their lives if they stayed. Master, miss, everything is packed. The little maid held the package in her arms. Ning Shu did not want to go with Prime Minister Mu. He said, Father, you and Mother go first. We will go in different directions. That's fine. We are a family. When can we meet again? If we are separated in this chaotic world, we might not be able to see each other before we die. Prime Minister Mu frowned. Obviously, he agreed with Ning Shu's suggestion. Ning Shu said, Father, Mother, go with big brother and little brother first. This way, the Mu family will have a bloodline. I won't go with you. Prime Minister Mu thought for a moment and said, that's fine. Ning Shu was speechless. You are really big. Aren't you worried about leaving your daughter behind? It was probably because of the plot. Thinking about it, any scene would be sex. His father-in-law was watching from the side. What was this? In the plot, Mu Yenluo was all alone. Take these banknotes. Prime Minister Mu took out a stack of banknotes and gave them to Ning Shu. Ning Shu accepted the banknotes and said, Thank you, Father. Father will give you one more person to protect you. This is my guard. He will protect you secretly in the future. Prime Minister Mu pointed to a guard holding a sword. Ning Shu looked at the guard. This guard looked very special. He had a square face and a wide chin. There was no such guard in the plot. Ning Shu recalled the plot and found that the guard had appeared once before, but he didn't appear after that. He either ran away on his own or was secretly killed by the male lead. He will protect you in secret. This girl will also follow you. Prime Minister Mu hurriedly finished his words. Then, he looked at Ning Shu with sorrowful eyes. Daughter, father is leaving. You must take care of yourself. The army is coming. Hurry up and run. As soon as Prime Minister Mu spoke, he ran out of sight. The guard glanced at Ning Shu and then jumped out of the window. He was probably going to protect her in the dark. It felt unreliable. Ning Shu put away the silver that Prime Minister Mu gave him and then said to the servant girl who was holding the package, You can go too. You don't have to follow me. This servant is by Mrs. side. This servant is not afraid. The young maidservant's teeth were chattering and her legs were trembling. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed and said indifferently, You don't have to follow me. I won't leave. This servant is by Mrs. side. Yulan is Mrs. person. Even if I die, I will be Mrs. ghost. Yulan said firmly. Ning Shu waved her hand. Up to you. If you want to follow me, then follow me. Get something to eat. I'm a bit hungry. Ning Shu said to Yulan. Yulan put down the package and went to get something for Ning Shu to eat. Looking out of the window, one could see that the city gate was brightly lit. There were also sounds of killing. The smell of blood drifted far away. The entire capital seemed to be in turmoil. That guard, are you still there? Ning Shu shouted out of the window. After waiting for a while, there was no response from the guard. Ning Shu felt depressed. This guy couldn't have run away, right? Here. A voice sounded. Ning Shu, she felt that this guy's reaction arc was a bit long. She called for such a long time before answering. How should I inform you? Did she have to call for him every time? If he didn't respond for a long time, it would be too late. Moreover, Ning Shu didn't know how loyal this guard was. Sigh, so melancholy. A black shadow appeared in front of Ning Shu. His face was covered, only revealing a pair of eyes. Ning Shu was shocked. Miss, it's me. The guard said. Ning Shu stroked her chest. Why are you covering your face? This is the rule of us secret guards. The guard said. Ning Shu, you're like this, forgetting what you look like after a glance. Covering your face is even more eye-catching. This is a whistle. When Miss blows the whistle, I will appear. The guard gave Ning Shu a whistle. Ning Shu took the whistle and asked, Can I hear it no matter where I am? This question was a bit difficult. The guard didn't answer for a long time. Finally, he said, As long as I am by Miss's side, I can hear when Miss blows the whistle. Thank you. Ning Shu put away the whistle. At least she felt a bit safer. Yulan brought food. Ning Shu said, Miss, there's no one in the residence now. This servant made some noodles. Ning Shu didn't dislike it. She ate some of the food that Yulan brought and said, You can also make some food yourself. Ning Shu rubbed her stomach and waited for the general to come. She waited until Ning Shu was about to fall asleep. Finally, someone broke into the Prime Minister's residence. Messy footsteps came over. Peng, the door was kicked open. Then, the door fell to the ground with a creak. It fell to the ground and splashed up dust. It was completely ruined. Ning Shu was speechless. Couldn't they open the door properly? All of them liked to kick the door open. Ning Shu remained silent and sat on the stool without moving. She looked at the man walking at the front. This man was tall and strong, and he was wearing armor. The moment he walked into the room, the entire room was filled with the thick smell of blood. Ning Shu looked at him. This was Mu Yanluo's first man, Situ Qingyu. Wow, General, there's a beauty here. So beautiful, so beautiful. When Ning Shu saw these people looking at her with lustful and disgusting eyes, she cursed in her heart. She had never enjoyed such treatment before. She felt like she had been raped. Sure enough, she was used to being an ugly little cannon fodder. All of you, get out. Situ Qingyu said to the soldiers behind him. His voice was deep and forceful like a powerful army, majestic and cold. Seeing Ning Shu, a great beauty, these soldiers and officers were reluctant to leave. One of them cupped his fists and said, General, this beauty must be the famous beauty Mu Yanluo of Donghua Nation. We have worked hard for the whole night. General, what do you think? I said get lost. Situ Qingyu directly pulled out the big saber at his waist and said coldly, What's wrong? My words don't matter, or do you want to go against the military order? Everyone immediately understood that the general had taken a fancy to this beauty and wanted to have sex with her first. The eyes of the men blocking the door were glued to Ning Shu. They couldn't look away and some of them even drooled. However, with Situ Qingyu around, they couldn't think of this beauty. Situ Qingyu was very powerful and these men were very afraid of him. In the end, they all left reluctantly, leaving Situ Qingyu alone. Chapter 125. After the other soldiers left, Situ Qingyu walked over to Ning Shu and threw the sword on the table. The little girl, Yuelan, was so scared that her legs turned to jelly. She fell to the ground and looked at the fierce Situ Qingyu in shock. Ning Shu's eyelids twitched, but her expression did not change. "Damn it, if I could master a peerless martial art, I would whip you to death." Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu and let out a low laugh. "I didn't expect Miss Mu to be so bold. Were you waiting for me in this embroidery house?" Although Situ Qingyu was a general, he was definitely good-looking and handsome. Now, he looked at Ning Shu with undisguised passion and desire. Ning Shu coughed and tried to make her voice sound a little rougher. "General, are you going to kill women and children now?" "Kill you? How could I bear to kill you?" As Situ Qingyu said this, he suddenly twitched the saber at his waist. The saber reflected a white light that shone on Ning Shu's face. Situ Qingyu stabbed the saber at Ning Shu's head. Ning Shu did not dodge and just stared at Situ Qingyu in a daze. "Miss!" Yulan shouted, her face deathly pale. Situ Qingyu glanced at Ning Shu, whose expression did not change. With a flick of his wrist, he took the hairpin in her hair and held it in his hand. Then, he put the hairpin to the tip of his nose and sniffed it. He said in a low and sexy voice, "It smells so good." Ning Shu grinned and did not say anything. She had to maintain a noble and elegant appearance to reduce the seductiveness of her body. Mu Yanluo's body was emitting hormones at any time and anywhere, sending out signals that said, "Come on me, come on me." No man liked a woman with a cold face. Situ Qingyu put the hairpin back into Ning Shu's hair bun. This hairpin suits you best." He's a master at flirting." In the plot, Situ Qingyu raped Mu Yanluo and was mesmerized by her body. The Prime Minister's residence was a place for pleasure at any time and place. Women would always have some special feelings for their first man. Moreover, after a long time together, Mu Yanluo's heart had been given to Situ Qingyu. Mu Yanluo had thought that Situ Qingyu also loved her. After all, if he didn't love her, how could he roll around with her every day? Moreover, he was so passionate. However, he did not hesitate to give her away as if she was a brothel girl. Mu Yanluo was truly beaten to a pulp. Situ Qingyu saw that the beauty was ignoring him. She was indifferent to whatever he did. Situ Qingyu revealed a faint smile and said lightly, "Interesting, very interesting." "Ning Shu, that's a classic line for picking up girls. So, are you going to say, 'Woman, you've successfully attracted my attention'?" "Very well, you've attracted my attention." Situ Qingyu bent over slightly and lowered his head to get closer to Ning Shu. This action was very ambiguous, as if he was going to lean over and kiss her. At the same time, Situ Qingyu had an extremely strong aura and oppression that would make a woman's heart pound wildly. However, in the face of Situ Qingyu's flirting skills, Ning Shu looked up at Situ Qingyu expressionlessly. Situ Qingyu stretched out his head and lifted Ning Shu's chin. Situ Qingyu's face was getting closer and closer, and it looked like he was going to kiss her. "TSK, TSK." There was a bloody smell on him. Ning Shu instantly felt that this guy had come back from slaughtering pigs and hadn't even taken a shower. Ning Shu stretched out his fist and punched Situ Qingyu in the eye, only to hit Situ Qingyu's palm. Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu with a faint smile and grabbed Ning Shu's fist with his slender and broad hand. "I like this frosty look of yours even more. It's even more mesmerizing to see a frosty look turn into a passionate one when you're about to give pleasure." Situ Qingyu's words were lewd, but his handsome face made him look particularly devilish. Ning Shu, damn, he failed to pretend to be noble and cold. Situ Qingyu lowered his head and wanted to kiss the hand in his palm. Ning Shu withdrew his hand and picked up the whistle hanging in front of his chest. He took a deep breath and blew the whistle as loudly as he could. Bang! A black shadow jumped in through the window. He was dressed in black and had a mask on his face. He was very conspicuous in this brightly lit room. Beat him as hard as you can. This bastard dared to take advantage of me. Cut off his penis. Ning Shu pointed at Situ Qingyu and cursed. She didn't look noble and cold at all. Situ Qingyu was stunned for a moment. Obviously, he couldn't figure out why the beauty suddenly changed her style. Situ Qingyu raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. He said in a low voice, "So you have a helper. Beauty, I like to hear you speak. Even if you're cursing, it sounds like you're pleasing me." Ning Shu, damn. Ning Shu wished he could poison himself into a mute. This was the female lead of an erotic novel. It was obviously a very painful thing, but the expression on her face was both joyful and painful. It made men want to torture her even more and tear her apart. Ning Shu pinched her own neck and tried her best to make her voice sound less seductive. She shouted at the secret guard, "Cut off his dick." Situ Qingyu and the secret guard fought. Sand and stones flew everywhere. The chairs and benches in the room were swept by the aftermath and turned into wreckage. Yuelan's face was pale. She moved to Ning Shu's side and watched the fight. She asked in a trembling voice, "Miss, what's a dick?" Ning Shu. Plop. A figure fell at Ning Shu's feet. Ning Shu felt uncomfortable when he saw that it was the secret guard. The secret guard stood up with a hand on his chest. Ning Shu said, "Miss, this person is not weak. I can't beat him. I'll go and treat my injuries first." With that, the secret guard jumped out of the window and ran away. "Damn, you're so useless. What's the point of keeping you? If you want to run, you have to run with your master." Ning Shu pretended to be noble and aloof as she raised her chin and looked at Situ Qingyu. Situ Qingyu's arm was injured and was bleeding profusely. "General, what's wrong?" A guard outside the door asked. Ning Shu smiled, revealing his white teeth. He said indifferently to the door, "It's nothing." The battle was a little intense. Situ Qingyu's words were very ambiguous. The person outside the house immediately let out a wretched laugh and left again. Ning Shu beckoned Situ Qingyu with his finger. "Come here and bandage my wound." He didn't know how to bandage a wound. Ning Shu didn't say anything. "Since you're not coming over, I'll come over. I'm not just here to bandage my wound," Situ Qingyu said as he asked Ning Shu to come over. "Damn it." Ning Shu cursed in his heart and walked towards Situ Qingyu. When he walked, Ning Shu found that his body was habitually twisting his waist. It was completely spontaneous. Chapter 126. Her body automatically made the most seductive movements. When her waist moved, it was the most comfortable position. Ning Shu clamped her buttocks, not allowing her waist to move. Her entire body stiffened as she walked towards Situ Qingyu. Situ Qingyu took off his shirt without hesitation, revealing his muscular body. The only thing that ruined the scene was the bloodstain on his arm. Situ Qingyu said indifferently, "Help me bandage my wound." Ning Shu said directly, "I don't know how to." Situ Qingyu narrowed his eyes and looked at Ning Shu dangerously. "Don't you know how to bandage a wound? You really are a lady from a noble family." Situ Qingyu's voice was full of sarcasm as he said coldly, "You ladies from noble families have your eyes in the sky. You are my captive now. Whatever I say goes." Ning Shu pursed his lips and wrapped the cloth that Yuelan had torn around Situ Qingyu's arm. Situ Qingyu seemed to have thought of something bad and looked at Ning Shu with ferocity and disgust. "Shouldn't you clean the wound first? You really don't eat the food of mortals." Ning Shu used the cloth to wipe his wound. Situ Qingyu hissed in pain and looked at Ning Shu coldly. "Did you do it on purpose?" "No," Ning Shu said indifferently. "Sure enough, you ladies from noble families are all whores. Situ Qingyu became irritable and his words became more and more unpleasant. Ding! Abuse points, 5, 2333's voice suddenly appeared in Ning Shu's head. Ning Shu was dumbfounded. What did she do? She was the one who was scolded by Situ Qingyu. How did she abuse him? Ning Shu was very confused, but his hands were not slow. After tying the cloth for Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu with a gloomy face. Ning Shu was confused. What was wrong with him? Situ Qingyu stood up. The muscles on his body were bulging, and his entire body was filled with the smell of hormones. Get out! Situ Qingyu growled at Yuelan in a low voice, and the whole room shook. Yuelan was so scared that she fell to the ground and looked at Ning Shu with tears in her eyes. You can leave. Ning Shu Yuelan said calmly. But miss, if this servant goes out, miss will face this barbarian alone. This servant is afraid that something will happen to Mississippi. Although Yuelan was afraid, she was still determined to stay and accompany Ning Shu. Yuelan shouted at Situ Qingyu, let go of my miss and come at me. Yuelan puffed out her chest as she spoke. Ning Shu was speechless. Scram! Situ Qingyu looked at Yuelan with killing intent. Get out! Ning Shu said. Yuelan left while crying. After Yuelan left, Situ Qingyu lowered his head and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at him indifferently. There was a pair of scissors hidden under the sleeves of his deep robe. Ning Shu had secretly hidden the scissors when he was cutting the cloth. If Situ Qingyu really dared to make a move on her, Ning Shu would not hesitate to stab the scissors into his heart. So what if he was handsome? He was still a rapist even if he was handsome. I hate young ladies like you the most in my life. In front of others, you look pure and innocent, but behind others, you are vicious and arrogant. Situ Qingyu pinched Ning Shu's chin and said viciously, so, when I meet a young lady like you, I will first rape and then kill you. Fuck, this guy was a psychopath. He mourned for Mu Yenluo. Although she was raped, she was not killed. Ning Shu's expression did not change. Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu and asked, what do you think I should do to you? Kill and rape? In the past, it was always rape and then kill. Now that she was the female lead, she naturally had to be special. Then guess what happened to the young lady who made me kneel and lick her shoes? Situ Qingyu seemed to want to chat with Ning Shu, but the content of the conversation was not so pleasant. What do you think Ben will do to her? Situ Qingyu sat down and looked at Ning Shu with a faint smile, but there was disgust in the depths of his eyes. Ning Shu blinked and said, it must be some inhumane torture. I threw her into a pack of wolves, and the wolves were fed with drugs in advance. The pack of wolves raped her while tearing her flesh, but I didn't want her to die so quickly. She lived for half a month under the wolves' bodies, and finally died with her body in a bloody mess. When she died, I couldn't even see her arrogant and despotic face. Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu. Do you think this punishment is good? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu was filled with disgust. Situ Qingyu continued to blabber. In summary, Situ Qingyu, who was once a poor boy, was humiliated by the young ladies of noble families. In addition, Situ Qingyu was very tall and handsome, which aroused the desire of these young ladies to conquer him. They even made Situ Qingyu kneel on the ground and bark like a dog to lick his shoes. This caused Situ Qingyu to be traumatized and twisted. Then, when he became successful and famous, he took revenge on these people one by one in cruel and vicious ways. Ning Shu finally understood why Situ Qingyu did not say anything when he caught Mu Yenluo and directly raped her. It turned out that there was such a story. No wonder Situ Qingyu sent Mu Yenluo away without a word when the Lord wanted her. Situ Qingyu hated the young ladies of noble families. Mu Yenluo was the daughter of the Prime Minister of Donghua Nation and had a noble status. When Situ Qingyu saw Mu Yenluo, he vented all his anger on her. However, the female lead's body was so alluring that Situ Qingyu directly imprisoned Mu Yenluo and trapped her in the embroidery house. They had sex almost 24 hours a day. Ning Shu was speechless. Mu Yenluo was completely unjustly implicated. TSK. Sure enough, Situ Qingyu wanted to take revenge on society and women. He was a scumbag who felt that he had been wronged. Situ Qingyu saw Ning Shu's disdainful look and his face darkened. What's with your expression? Are you looking down on me? Do you really think you're a high and mighty young lady? TSK. I didn't say anything. What are you trying to say? Ning Shu shook his head and said, Are you trying to get back at a woman? Ha, get back at a woman? You think too highly of yourself. I heard that you're the most beautiful woman in Donghua Nation. Let me think, what would it be like if the most beautiful woman in Donghua Nation were to be pleasured by me and end up as a promiscuous military prostitute? Situ Qingyu's voice was filled with doubt, but he looked at Ning Shu with malicious eyes. What a perverted lunatic. Ning Shu said expressionlessly, How would I know what it would be like? Try it and you'll know. Situ Qingyu's voice was very evil. He looked at Ning Shu with naked desire and malice. Chapter 127. When Ning Shu saw Situ Qingyu's expression and the deep desire in his eyes, she knew what this guy wanted to do. Not to mention this mission, even Ning Shu herself did not want to roll around with such a lunatic. What do you want to do? Ning Shu looked at Situ Qingyu coldly with a murderous look in his eyes. Situ Qingyu met Ning Shu's eyes and said sarcastically, Don't look at me with such a high and mighty look. Do you believe that I will dig your eyeballs out? Those bitches looked at me like that and they will never be able to see again. TSK, what a sensitive pervert. Why are you asking me? What can a man and a woman do in a room? Situ Qingyu said evilly. You will be fucked by me like a bitch. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn, even the male lead of a pornographic novel spoke so vulgarly. But he was good-looking and had a special charm when he said something only a hooligan would say. Like a bitch? Shin Qingqing sneered. You were also born by a bitch. This idiot hated women so much that he wanted to exterminate them. You have a sharp tongue. I will let you know that you will not have a good ending if you anger me. Situ Qingyu bared his teeth, which reflected a white light. The entire Prime Minister's mansion is my people. Do you think you can escape? Do you think you are invincible just because you have a secret guard? Ning Shu lifted his chin slightly and looked at Situ Qingyu proudly. He said disdainfully, You are just like a bug. You are amazing after climbing to a high position. Since Situ Qingyu cared a lot about those days of being treated badly, Ning Shu's action was to tear open his scars and then sprinkle salt on the wound. She even rubbed it hard twice so that it would be easier for the taste to seep in. Situ Qingyu's eyes turned red at Ning Shu's condescending attitude. His face trembled and he gritted his teeth. You are courting death. Ding. Abuse points, 10. Current abuse points, 15. The sound of 2333 suddenly rang in his head. Ning Shu instantly felt that this was the right move. Situ Qingyu really cared about that past. Even if I die, I still look down on people like you. No wonder those women despise you. It's all because of you. People like you deserve to be bullied. Ning Shu's face was full of disdain. Why don't you blame your mother for giving birth to you? You are courting death. Situ Qingyu's eyes were red as he reached out and grabbed Ning Shu's neck. Ning Shu instantly felt as if his breathing had been cut off. This body was indeed weak. Mu Yenluo, you successfully infuriated me. Situ Qingyu clenched his fist. He felt that he could break this thin neck with a gentle pinch. A life would end in his hands. This feeling made Situ Qingyu feel infatuated and carefree. Ning Shu felt that it was difficult to breathe. He took out the scissors that he had hidden and quickly slit Situ Qingyu's wrist. In an instant, the skin and flesh split open and blood gushed out. Situ Qingyu was stunned. Ning Shu kicked Situ Qingyu's crotch. "I'm going to play with your penis today." Ning Shu used all the strength in this body to kick, but it didn't seem to have any effect. Situ Qingyu only groaned and didn't show any expression of pain. Ning Shu, fuck, how weak is this body? Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu indifferently as if he was looking at a dead man. The wound that was cut by the scissors was dripping blood. Ning Su didn't think twice and used the divine dragon tail whip to trip Situ Qingyu, but Situ Qingyu didn't move at all. Ning Shu felt that he was struggling before death. Fuck, her fighting skills were completely useless. It was all because of this body. It was so weak. I've decided. I won't kill you. I want to see how you noble ladies will look when you fall in love with me. Crying and begging for pleasure. Situ Qingyu's face revealed a convulsive smile, cold and cruel. Ning Shu breathed a sigh of relief. Damn, at least the female lead halo was useful. If she was cannon fodder, she would have been killed by Situ Qingyu. Now, Situ Qingyu wanted her to fall in love with him and then be abandoned by him. Then, she would be in so much pain that she wished she was dead. Now, Situ Qingyu didn't care about physical torture. He wanted to torture his opponent mentally. Ning Shu immediately raised her chin and said, "Why would this lady like a lowly person like you? Are you kidding? You're just a bug." Ding, abuse points 5. Current abuse points 20. Ning Shu, huh? 2333 came out to make her presence known again. Damn it, she did not even make a sound when Situ Qingyu grabbed her by the neck just now. Don't test my patience. Situ Qingyu clenched his fist quietly. His hand that was cut by Ning Shu bled even more, forming a pool of blood on the ground. Situ Qingyu snorted coldly and turned to leave. When he reached the door, he kicked it, and the other door also fell to the ground. As soon as Situ Qingyu left, Ning Shu's entire body relaxed. She moved her neck. Fuck, it was so painful from Situ Qingyu's grip. However, not being raped by Situ Qingyu was her greatest achievement. At least she got 20 abuse points. These abuse points were just rubbing salt on the wound. There were 7 hardships in life: birth, old age, illness, death, resentment, separation, and not being able to get it. There was nothing more painful than not being able to get it. Situ Qingyu wanted her to fall in love with him and then torture her. Ning Shu was going to give him a taste of his own medicine. The problem was, Ning Shu had no idea how to do it. 2333, are you there? Can you give me some advice? Shen Qingqing asked. How do I make Situ Qingyu fall in love with me? After you have sex with him, he will naturally fall in love with you, 2333 said. Ning Shu was speechless. What was the female lead's body? Could men fall in love with her after having sex? Was it a masterpiece? Ning Shu gave up on this plan. She was not suitable for seducing others. Besides, wasn't this cheating on their feelings? Ning Shu did not have any feelings for these men. Why would she hurt herself by seducing these men? She might as well find a sore spot and step on it with all her might. Then, the abuse value would go up. For example, Situ Qingyu was arrogant and self-abased. He cared most about women looking down on him, so Ning Shu used all her strength to mock him. Miss, are you okay? I'm so sorry. Yulan wailed as she ran into the room. She saw Ning Shu sitting on a stool with her legs crossed, as if nothing had happened. Yulan thought that when she walked in, she would see a messy and torn piece of clothing. Then, the young miss would lie on the bed with nothing left to live for. It was completely different from what she had imagined. Yulan's wailing stopped immediately. She was like a duck being strangled. Chapter 128. Yuelan was dumbfounded. Ning Shu asked, "Miss, are you alright? What do you think happened to me?" Ning Shu said angrily. Yuelan's face suddenly showed an expression of relief. She patted her chest and said, "It's good that Miss is fine. It's good that you are fine." Ning Shu said, "Let's go get something to eat. I'm a little hungry." "Miss, everything in the Prime Minister's mansion has been taken away. There is no food in the kitchen at all," Yuelan said with a sad face. Yuelan was a girl of 13 or 14 years old. She had a baby face. When she held her face, her whole face wrinkled into a thin bun. Situ Qingyu was really ruthless. Did he want to starve her to death? Then let's go to a restaurant. Ning Shu waved his hand, looking very heroic. "I'll take you to eat something delicious." Yuelan looked at Ning Shu with a bitter face. "We are surrounded by guards in all directions. We can't even leave the embroidery building." Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu picked up the spoon hanging on his chest without thinking. However, his chest was too big. Ning Shu took off his clothes and took out the whistle from his deep cleavage. In his previous life, Ning Shu did not expect to have such a big chest. He felt that he had no regrets in life. Ning Shu blew the whistle. It was melodious and very pleasant to listen to. After blowing for a long time, Ning Shu's cheeks were sore, but the secret guards did not appear. Ning Shu was speechless. Did this guy run away? He was definitely not reliable. What should he do now? Was he going to starve to death? Ning Shu and Yuelan looked at each other. Ning Shu coughed and said, "Is there a dog hole nearby? Let's go out and look for food." Yuelan looked at Ning Shu and said hesitantly, "Miss has a precious body, how can you crawl through a dog hole?" "It's fine. Your miss can do anything. Isn't it just going through a dog hole?" Ning Shu said without a care. As long as he could achieve his goal, there was nothing he couldn't do. "Miss, this servant is a pitiful Mississippi. She is a golden branch and a jade leaf, yet she has to do such a thing." Yuelan howled again. Ning Shu's face darkened. "Stop howling. Where's the dog hole?" Ning Shu tied up his hair. Too complicated a bun was very inconvenient. Then, he said to Yuelan, "Let's go." Yuelan had been looking at Ning Shu with a guilty and distressed expression. It's all because this servant didn't take good care of Mississippi. This servant has failed master's instructions. Ning Shu was speechless. He felt that this girl was thinking too much. Did she look so pitiful? Yuelan brought Ning Shu to the desolate backyard of the Prime Minister's residence. She pushed aside the withered grass at the foot of the wall, revealing a dog hole in the wall. Ning Shu looked at Yuelan. "How do you know there's a dog hole here? Have you crawled through it?" "Miss, how can you say that about this servant?" Yuelan looked at Ning Shu with tears in her eyes. "Ning Shu, what did I say? This servant is Mrs. Servant. How can I crawl through a dog hole? This servant walks through the main door." Yuelan defended her dignity. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu crawled out of the dog hole with difficulty. Her chest was almost stuck. If Yuelan hadn't pushed her with all her strength, she probably wouldn't have been able to get out. This was the first time she realized that having big breasts wasn't perfect. Ning Shu rubbed her chest. "It hurts so much." Yuelan crawled out of the dog hole easily. Seeing Ning Shu grimacing in pain, she hurried over to help Ning Shu brush off the dust and grass on her body. "Miss, why do you have to humiliate yourself like this? Master will be heartbroken if he finds out," Yuelan said. Ning Shu didn't care at all. How was this humiliating? Mu Yanluo in the plot was the one who was humiliating herself. She humiliated herself, and men humiliated her too. Moreover, it wasn't a man. "Look, this is the noble and beautiful miss of a big family. How does it feel to crawl through a dog hole? Situ Qingyu's voice suddenly rang out. Ning Shu looked around but didn't see Situ Qingyu anywhere. Miss, he's up there. Yu Lan's teeth were chattering. Ning Shu looked up and saw Situ Qingyu standing on the wall in a blue robe. His long hair fluttered in the wind and he looked very pretentious. Ning Shu brushed his messy hair and said indifferently, "It feels very convenient." "Very good." "Humph." Situ Qingyu snorted coldly. Then, he opened his arms and flew in front of Ning Shu. He really looked like a birdman. Ning Shu took a step back. Situ Qingyu stood in front of Ning Shu and said coldly, "You're very bold. How dare you sneak out of the mansion without my permission? Tell me, how should I punish you?" Ning Shu pulled Yuelan back a step and said, "Rape first and then kill first and then rape?" Situ Qingyu's face twitched. He said in a low voice, "In your heart, I'm a big sex fiend." Ning Shu nodded without hesitation. "You're definitely the perverted sex fiend." Situ Qingyu sneered. "If I don't do anything, I'll be unworthy of this title." As Situ Qingyu spoke, he reached out to grab Ning Shu. Ning Shu shouted, "Look at my hidden weapon." "Bah!" Ning Shu directly spat at Situ Qingyu's face. Then, he pulled Yulan and quickly ran away. Situ Qingyu moved his body slightly and dodged Ning Shu's hidden weapon. His eyes were red as he watched Ning Shu run away. "Miss, please stop. I can't run anymore." Yulan looked like she was about to stop breathing. Ning Shu stopped and panted. He looked around and did not see Situ Qingyu's figure chasing after him. "Miss, it's really been hard on you." Yulan had not recovered from Ning Shu's fierce spitting. "Miss is gentle and noble. Now, you've become like this. Master will be so heartbroken if he knows." "Alright, don't be heartbroken. Where are we going to eat now?" Ning Shu saw the buns in the bun shop's drawer and drooled. "Boss, give me 2 steamers of buns." Go, beggars, get lost." The boss of the bun shop drove Ning Shu and Yulan away. Yulan immediately raised her eyebrows. "How dare you be so rude to my Mississippi? If you don't get lost, I'll beat you to death, beggars." The boss of the bun shop unceremoniously roared at Ning Shu and Yulan. His attitude was as bad as it could be. Ning Shu was puzzled. She was now the female lead. Wherever she went, there would be people helping her. Why was the boss of the bun shop so fierce to her? Why did it feel like they had a grudge? "Do you know who our miss is?" Yulan wiped the dust on Ning Shu's face with a handkerchief. She pushed her hair aside and showed Ning Shu's face. She asked the boss, look clearly who our miss is." The boss of the bun shop widened his eyes and said, "I don't care who you are. Buy buns if you have money. Get lost if you don't." Ning Shu was speechless. "Forget it. Let's go." Ning Shu looked at the increasing number of people around them. The female lead had a constitution of accidents. Something would happen wherever she went and then attract attention. Chapter 129. Ning Shu didn't want to fight to the death with this bun shop owner. It was completely meaningless. There was more than one bun shop. However, Yuelan acted as if the bun shop owner had dug up her ancestral grave. She fought with the owner and insisted on defending her dignity as a young lady. Ning Shu didn't know whether to be moved or to knock her out and drag her away. "You 2 thieves, how dare you steal my buns and yell at me, little beggars." The bun shop owner looked at Ning Shu and Yuelan, the 2 women. She rolled her eyes and slandered Ning Shu and Yuelan for stealing her buns. Yuelan's eyes widened. "You're talking nonsense. When did the young lady and I steal your buns? Shame on you." Ning Shu still didn't know what this shop owner was thinking. Ning Shu was a pig. Ning Shu thought about whether she should sit on the ground and cry. What's going on? A dignified and domineering voice sounded. When Ning Shu heard this voice, her whole body trembled. A person who even had background music when he spoke was definitely the male lead. Ning Shu looked in the direction of the voice with a pair of myopic eyes. She saw a man with a feathered crown sitting on the back of a horse. He was wearing a brocade robe and a translucent white jade pendant on his waist. He held the reins in his hand. He was a still picture of a handsome man. He was handsome and well-dressed, elegant and distinguished. This humble one greets the regent. The bun shop owner immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the regent. The prince regent was that prince. Ning Shu was speechless. She was really unlucky. She just came out to get some food. She didn't even take out the money and the bun shop owner chased her and Yuelan away. She even called them little beggars and accused them of stealing buns. Now that she met this prince, Ning Shu guessed that the next plot should be a hero saving the damsel in distress. The regent Luo Junyan. What's going on? Luo Junyan turned over and dismounted from the horse. His movements were noble and elegant. When Yulan saw that someone was in charge, and that this person's status was not low, she quickly said, "This snobbish boss wrongly accused this servant and young miss of stealing her buns." Miss? Luo Junyan looked at Ning Shu, who was filthy and had messy hair. Which family are you from? My miss is. Yuelan wanted to speak, but Ning Shu covered her mouth. Ning Shu coughed and pinched his neck. I'm not a Mississippi. Ning Shu not only raised her voice, but also looked at Luo Junyan with a pair of myopic eyes. Since she was already so unkempt, she might as well pretend to be a little beggar. If she had a pair of clear eyes, wouldn't she be exposed? We'll be leaving first. Ning Shu pulled Yulan and hurriedly left. Wait a minute. Luo Junyan stopped Ning Shu and said, "You haven't even gotten to the bottom of this matter. Are you willing to bear the crime of theft?" Ning Shu wanted to say that she didn't care at all. She didn't steal any buns at all. The male lead was really too free to care about the buns. The attraction between the male and female leads was undeniable. The plot always brought them together. Tell me, did the two of them steal your buns? Luo Junyan looked at the bun shop owner indifferently. Under Luo Junyan's aura, the owner trembled and couldn't even speak clearly. Ning Shu completely understood. This bun shop owner was the NPC that allowed her and Luo Junyan to meet, the NPC that allowed Luo Junyan to save the damsel in distress. Ning Shu's heart went numb. The plot was indeed powerful. She hadn't been sent to Luo Junyan by Situ Qingyu yet. She had snuck out to look for something to eat, and in the end, she met the male lead. No wonder Mu Yen Luo couldn't escape these men for 3 lifetimes. Ha! I want to hear the truth. There are so many people here. If you dare to lie, you can go to jail. Luo Junyan's voice was very authoritative, making people want to submit to him. The bun shop owner knelt on the ground, his face pale. He stuttered and said, "They didn't steal the buns. This commoner is framing them." You're really bad. I knew it. Yuelan was full of contempt for the shop owner. Ning Shu said, "Now the truth is out. Miss, how do you think we should punish this black-hearted shop owner?" Ning Shu's eyes widened, but she didn't say anything. "Miss, don't be afraid. I'll make the decision for you," Luo Junyan said calmly. When he said this, he was very tall and gave people a sense of security that they could rely on. It was very tempting. Ning Shu didn't feel anything. She said to the bun shop owner in a sharp voice, "Pack up all the buns. Yuelan, keep the buns and let's go." Okay. Yuelan hurriedly put away all the buns in the drawer. "Oh my, young lady, I'm just running a small business." The bun shop owner frowned and looked at Ning Shu pitifully. "I took a fancy to your buns because I think highly of you. You falsely accused me of stealing your buns. You should be happy that I didn't send you to prison. Ning Shu didn't have the kindness and tolerance that a female lead should have. She was completely like a dog relying on its master's power, arrogant and despotic. Sigh. The bun shop owner sighed and looked like he was suffering but couldn't say anything. It made Ning Shu feel that she was still a big villain, wearing the female lead's skin and courting death. In the plot, these men all fell in love with the kind female lead. After a torturous relationship, they were all charmed by the female lead. Now that she had become so vicious and arrogant, would the male lead still love her? Ning Shu turned her head, wanting to see Luo Junyan's expression. Disgust? Contempt? In the end, she met Luo Junyan's half-smile and amused gaze. Ning Shu clutched her chest and almost vomited blood. She was already humiliating herself like this. She couldn't be a kind female lead at all. Was this idiot's eyes covered with shit? Miss, the buns are packed. Yuelan took away all the buns. Yuelan and Ning Shu were both holding buns in their hands. Ning Shu was still eating a bun. Her face was dirty, and coupled with the way she was wolfing down her food, she looked extremely ugly. Miss, are you leaving just like that? Luo Junyan stopped Ning Shu again. Ning Shu was very impatient and said coldly, "What do you want?" "I'm your savior." "You're leaving just like that?" Luo Junyan frowned, his aura domineering. Ning Shu thought for a moment and took out a bun for Luo Junyan to repay him for helping her out. However, the bun accidentally fell on the ground and rolled twice. Ning Shu smiled apologetically and hurriedly picked up the bun on the ground. She wiped it on her clothes and stuffed it into Luo Junyan's mouth, saying, "Take this bun as your reward for helping me." The bun fell on the ground and then rubbed against his dusty clothes. Luo Junyan hurriedly spat out the bun in his mouth, feeling disgusted. Chapter 130. Luo Junyan frowned. "No one has ever treated me like this. Woman, you successfully pissed me off." When Luo Junyan spoke, his mouth tasted like a stuffed bun. Ning Shu and Yuelan took a step back at the same time, distancing themselves from him. "Then what do you want? Could it be that you want this little girl to repay you with her body?" Ning Shu pulled Yuelan away. Luo Junyan looked at the backs of the two women and muttered, "Interesting, interesting." He was the Prince Regent. Women would throw themselves at him when they saw him, but this woman had such an attitude. She wanted to welcome him but rejected him. Ha! Yuelan ate the bun and saw that Ning Shu's expression was not good. She said, "Miss, that person is really a good person. He even helped us out." "Good person?" Ning Shu sneered in her heart and said, "Eat your bun." Luo Junyan was not a good person. In the plot, he saw Mu Yenluo at the Prime Minister's residence and was shocked. He asked Situ Qingyu for Mu Yenluo. At that time, Mu Yenluo and Situ Qingyu had already slept together. When she was given to Luo Junyan, she was already pregnant. However, it was too early for Mu Yenluo to notice. With a beauty in his hands, he wanted to have a taste. Luo Junyan did not care about Mu Yenluo's dead heart and the pain of being betrayed by the person she loved. He immediately slept with Mu Yenluo, only to find out that she was no longer a virgin. He immediately pulled out heartlessly. It was an extreme insult to Mu Yenluo and he even whipped her. To Luo Junyan, he was a prince with a noble status and had slept with many women. In the end, Mu Yenluo ended up being called a chastity demon. It was a disgrace. Luo Junyan continued to torment Mu Yenluo. Luo Junyan felt that Mu Yenluo was an unclean and slutty woman. To think that he had been infatuated with Mu Yenluo's beauty. In the end, all he got was a broken shoe. Luo Junyan never thought that Mu Yenluo, a woman, could not control her own fate. She was raped by Situ Qingyu and did not even have the strength to resist. Luo Junyan would only blame Mu Yenluo for losing her virginity. His pride as a man made Luo Junyan furious, and he vented all his anger on Mu Yenluo. Later, when he found out that Mu Yenluo was pregnant with a bastard's child, he was so angry that he wanted to die. He immediately fucked Mu Yenluo cruelly, causing her to have a miscarriage. Luo Junyan did not stop his assault on Mu Yenluo. Instead, he stared at the blood and became even more excited. He felt an unprecedented excitement. It was a pity that Mu Yenluo had suffered. She had lost her child and was raped by someone else. She couldn't be more miserable and had almost died. But the female lead would be fine no matter how much he tortured her. The prince carried the unconscious Mu Yenluo and roared at the imperial physicians, "You must cure her. If you can't, you will be buried with her." The female lead's body was like a poison. As long as they had sex, a man's heart would only have the female lead. After having sex with other women, they would lose interest. They were just short of impotence. Although Mu Yenluo had been cured, her heart was already riddled with holes. She had been betrayed by her lover, lost her child, and was raped by another man. Mu Yenluo was a woman from ancient times and valued her chastity very much. But fate was cruel. Mu Yenluo hated Luo Junyan to the core and started a torturous love story. But Luo Junyan was infatuated with the female lead's body. Moreover, he always chose to do it when Mu Yenluo was on her period. He was infatuated with the feeling of fighting a bloody battle. It was as if he had opened the door to a new world. In terms of perversion, even a general could not compare to the prince. Therefore, when Ning Shu heard Yulan say that the prince was a good person, he almost vomited blood. Both of them were rapists. How could they be considered good people? Basically, every time Mu Yenluo met a man, she would be tortured to a pulp. But the man was infatuated with Mu Yenluo's body. What a filthy world. It felt like the entire world was filled with hormones. Ning Shu ate 5 buns in a row and burped. Yulan asked Ning Shu, "Miss, where should we go now?" "Go back." Ning Shu hammered her chest. Damn it, she felt like she was choking on a bun. She had to hurry back to the Prime Minister residence to drink water. Yulan looked at Ning Shu in astonishment. "Miss, we managed to escape with great difficulty. Why do we have to go back?" "Miss is born with a countenance as beautiful as a flower and as beautiful as the moon. Going back is like entering a wolf's den. This servant is determined not to let Miss return." Ning Shu said, "Your Miss feels very thirsty. Let's go back to the Prime Minister residence to drink water." Yulan sighed in melancholy and followed Ning Shu back to the Prime Minister residence. If I had known that Miss had suffered so much, this servant would have advised Miss to leave with Master. Ning Shu thought that even if she left with Prime Minister Mu, they would still be separated. Da-da-da, the sound of horse hooves mixed with neat footsteps came from afar and sounded on the street. Ning Shu was slightly dazed and saw Situ Qingyu riding a horse with a group of soldiers behind him. Situ Qingyu sat on the horse and looked down at Ning Shu. Seeing that Ning Shu had a lot of buns in her arms, he waved to the guards behind him and said indifferently, "Send this general's captive back." Immediately, several imperial bodyguards prepared to step forward and capture Ning Shu and Yulan. Ning Shu's tiger-like body immediately trembled as she unruly and tyrannically shouted, "Are you blind? You actually dare to touch this young miss? Do you believe that this young miss will chop off your hands? That's right. Are you blind?" Yulan immediately chimed in. After being yelled at by Ning Shu, the guards did not dare to go forward to capture Ning Shu for a moment and looked at Situ Qingyu. When Situ Qingyu saw Ning Shu's arrogant and despotic look, disgust flashed in his eyes. His tone was mocking and teasing. "Miss Mu, do you want to ride with this general?" As Situ Qingyu spoke, he extended his hand and invited Ning Shu to get on his horse. Ning Shu must be out of her mind to ride on the same horse as this person. Ning Shu said indifferently, "This miss will walk on her own." Ha ha ha. Situ Qingyu smiled indifferently. In that case, you can run with the group. Aren't you very fast? What if you can't keep up with the group? Situ Qingyu pointed at Yulan. This girl beside you will become a military prostitute. Mississippi, Yulan's voice trembled as she looked at Ning Shu with tears in her eyes. Ning Shu immediately said, "Don't worry, your miss can keep up with the group. It's fine. Men, tie her up." Situ Qingyu smiled at Ning Shu, revealing his white teeth. This general will personally lead her. Ning Shu was speechless. What was wrong with her? A guard took out a rope and tied it around Ning Shu's wrist. He tightened it and tied a knot before handing the other end of the rope to Situ Qingyu. You can run behind this general. If you can't run fast enough, this general can only drag you along. That would be a pity for your porcelain skin, Situ Qingyu said indifferently as if he was saying that the weather today was not very good. Chapter 131. When Ning Shu heard that this bastard was going to drag her along, she ran behind with her own 2 legs. If she couldn't run fast enough, she would be dragged along. If she rubbed against the ground, she might even lose her life, not to mention her skin. This was definitely revenge for her spitting on him. As a general, being spat on, even with Situ Qingyu's overflowing self-esteem, he would still kill her. She was wrong. How could Luo Zhenyan compare to Situ Qingyu's perverted personality? There was always someone better. Situ Qingyu's mentality was definitely more twisted than Luo Zhenyan's. It's not too late to beg for mercy, Miss Mu. You don't seem to realize your status. You're no longer the daughter of the high and mighty Prime Minister, but my captive. I can decide your life and death, so don't do anything that makes me unhappy. Situ Qingyu's pupils trembled slightly. It was obvious that he was not as calm as he appeared to be. He was probably angry inside. Ning Shu hated this man to death. So what if he was capable? He only knew how to bully women and children. What was so great about him? Ning Shu called out to 2333 in his heart. 2333, give me a gun. I want to kill this bastard. Ning Shu, moi, you have a gun. 2333's voice rang in Ning Shu's head. Ning Shu was very happy. Then give it to me quickly. I can't stand this bastard. Sure, 2000 points. You don't have any points, so you can't exchange for it, 2333 said directly. Ning Shu gritted his teeth and said word by word, I'll pay on credit. Sorry, you can't use firearms or similar firearms. If you take out something that transcends time, it will cause chaos in space and affect the stability of the entire plane. 2333 guided him patiently. Your role is to repair the plane, not destroy it. Understand? Understand your ass. Ning Shu almost vomited blood. Ning Shu wanted to ask 2333 about other things, but suddenly a voice rang out. General Situ, what are you doing? When Ning Shu heard this voice, he immediately curled his lips. However, Yuelan who was beside him was happy. Ning Shu said excitedly in a low voice, Miss, it's that prince from before. We are saved. Ning Shu glanced at her. You're too naive. Luo Zhenyan rode over. Seeing Ning Shu's hands tied up, he raised his eyebrows and asked Situ Qingyu, what did she do? Greetings, Your Highness. This female slave is my captive. She sneaked out of the residence and I've captured her, Situ Qingyu said to Luo Zhenyan in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Luo Zhenyan narrowed his eyes slightly and said lightly, since she is a female slave, how about you give her to me? His Majesty has just conquered Donghua Nation. It is time to pacify the people. General, you should not do such a cruel thing. Just give her to me. A murderous aura suddenly surged from Situ Qingyu's body. He was like a hedgehog that had encountered danger. The spikes on his body stood up. This is my female slave. I have no intention of giving her to you, Your Highness. Luo Zhenyan frowned imperceptibly. A huge sense of loss surged in his heart. Suddenly, he wanted this female slave very much. This feeling was very strange, but it was very strong. In addition, Situ Qingyu's attitude towards him was also very noble. He, Luo Zhenyan, was the regent. This butcher who only knew how to kill dared to disrespect him. This made Luo Zhenyan lose face. All the more he wanted this female slave. Ning Shu watched from the side. He thought that she was going to be disfigured. In the end, Luo Zhenyan jumped out. As expected, the female lead was blessed with luck. Her body was her capital. Without this seductive body, how could she be the female lead? Situ Qingyu refused to budge. Luo Zhenyan was even more frustrated. He wanted to grab Ning Shu and leave. However, when he saw the guards behind Situ Qingyu, Luo Zhenyan calmed down and said coldly, since General Situ is unwilling to give her up, then forget it. After saying this, Luo Zhenyan felt even more disappointed. This feeling made him very uncomfortable. This feeling was very sudden and made him very uncomfortable. It seemed that this feeling would not disappear after he got this female slave. Are you willing to go with me? Ning Shu asked. Situ Qingyu also looked at Ning Shu. Situ Qingyu pursed his lips and looked at Ning Shu with red eyes. Ning Shu also had a voice in his heart telling him to go with this prince. This prince would protect her. Go with him. He was a good person. He even helped to teach the greedy bun shop owner a lesson. Ning Shu's heart skipped a beat. This was the plot. From the Prime Minister's residence to the prince's residence. There was a slight change in the plot. Situ Qingyu did not hand her over to Luo Zhenyan, but gave her the choice. Deep down, he wanted her to go with the prince. Ning Shu sneered in his heart. You want me to go with Luo Zhenyan? I will not go with him. Ning Shu said, I am the general's female slave. Of course, I will follow the general. Situ Qingyu and Luo Zhenyan were stunned. Situ Qingyu's face flashed with surprise. He thought that Ning Shu would go with the regent. Disappointment appeared on Luo Zhenyan's face. He wanted to say something, but Ning Shu said directly, I am the general's woman in life and the general's ghost in death. Situ Qingyu's eyes trembled. He was more confused. Luo Zhenyan's face was cold. He pulled the reins and turned to leave. He even turned back to look at Ning Shu. His gaze was strange. After Luo Zhenyan left, Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu and asked, Is what you said just now true? Ning Shu rolled his eyes at him and asked, What? Situ Qingyu's face instantly twisted. I wanted to untie you, but now it seems that there is no need. Let's go. Situ Qingyu pulled the reins. Ning Shu could only follow. Hurry up. Situ Qingyu pulled the reins. Ning Shu stumbled forward and hurriedly sped up. Ning Shu was glad that Situ Qingyu did not let the horse run. If that was the case, her 2 legs would not be able to outrun the horse's 4 legs. Ning Shu walked back to the Prime Minister's residence with 2 legs. Yuelan, who was beside him, looked at Ning Shu with heartache. She looked at Situ Qingyu, who was sitting on the horse, with disgust. When they reached the entrance of the Prime Minister's residence, Situ Qingyu got off the horse and walked to Ning Shu. He untied the reins on Ning Shu's wrists and said sarcastically, Miss Mu really knows how to seduce men. You just went out of the residence and seduced the Prince Regent to bring you back to the residence. He said it as if he was jealous. TSK. Ning Shu moved his wrist, which was not circulating blood. Situ Qingyu saw that Ning Shu ignored him and went straight into the Prime Minister's residence. He walked over and grabbed Ning Shu's wrist. His other hand pressed against the wall behind Ning Shu. It was an extremely ambiguous position. Chapter 132. Situ Qingyu's body exuded a strong aura of hostility. After the Capitan, he almost hugged Ning Shu in his arms. When he looked down at her from above, it made her heart beat wildly. Ning Shu, oh, this position. She didn't expect to be flirted with as the female lead. But could it be someone else? She was flirted with by a psychopath. She felt very depressed. Situ Qingyu was indeed an expert at controlling people's emotions. He had been so cruel just now, tying her up and dragging her away. Now, he was acting in such an ambiguous and domineering manner. It was so hot and cold that one couldn't control it at all. But Ning Shu only wanted to have a gun and shoot this guy in the head. Situ Qingyu said faintly, his tone still at a loss. Is what you said before true? You're my man. Even in life and death. It's fake, Ning Shu said without thinking. Situ Qingyu's expression instantly turned ugly. Ding. Abuse points, 10. Current abuse points, 30. 2,333 reported. Ning Shu was stunned for a moment. Seeing Situ Qingyu's hurt expression, if it was the female lead, her heart would probably ache. After all, the female lead was so hot and kind. Ning Shu said, why would I like a person who kills people like scything flax? You have a dark mind. I'd rather like a dog than a person like you. Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu maliciously. You're lighting the fire. Was the next sentence, you're responsible for extinguishing the fire you started? Look, there's an idiot over there. Ning Shu pointed behind Situ Qingyu. Situ Qingyu frowned and looked at Ning Shu. There really is an idiot. Turn around and look, Ning Shu said with certainty. Situ Qingyu turned his head. Ning Shu immediately crawled under his arm and ran away with Yuelan. Situ Qingyu was speechless. Ning Shu and Yulan ran back to the embroidery building. Yulan panted as she placed the steamed buns in her arms on the table. Ning Shu asked, Miss, why didn't you go with that prince and return to this wolf's den? Miss, this servant really doesn't understand what Miss is thinking. What's the difference? One was a wolf's den while the other was a tiger's den. Ning Shu drank a large cup of water and picked up a bun to eat. He said, your miss has her reasons. Pang! A black shadow jumped in through the window and rolled on the ground twice. The black shadow rolled in front of Ning Shu's feet and Ning Shu kicked him twice. The secret guard hurriedly got up from the ground and picked up the bun on the table to eat. Wearing black clothes in broad daylight with a scarf around his neck, there must be something wrong with his head. When I blew the whistle, where did you run off to? Didn't you hear it? Ning Shu said grumpily. But seeing the shadow guards appear, Ning Shu felt a sense of security. She never realized that the female lead could be so fragile. The secret guard stuffed the steamed buns into his mouth and said, I heard it. I was healing my injuries and I saw that Miss was fine, so I didn't appear. What kind of secret guard was this? He wasn't handsome but was so willful. He ran faster than anyone when fighting and immediately appeared when eating. What was the use of raising this kind of secret guard? Stop eating. What will we eat after you finish eating? Yulan, put away the steamed buns. Ning Shu said grumpily. You're a secret guard. You can't even get food for yourself. You even came to steal the food that we two weak women worked so hard to get. You're shameless. Ning Shu was speechless at this unreliable secret guard. The secret guard swallowed the steamed bun and covered his face with the black scarf, revealing a square forehead and a pair of eyes. Ning Shu felt very anxious when he saw this. He felt that this unimportant cannon fodder looked really casual. Miss, if there's anything, just blow the whistle. I'll appear immediately. Secret guard Ning Shu said. The moment he opened his mouth, there was the smell of leeks. Ning Shu was speechless. She had also blown it. The last time she wanted the shadow guard to get her and Yulan some food, she was almost out of breath. This guy didn't even come out. It was clear that this shadow guard was not reliable at all. Ning Shu thought for a moment, then took out a silver note and said, "Take this money and send some food to Yulan and me every day. Also, go buy food. Don't wear black clothes anymore. Go, I don't want to see you now." Ning Shu waved his hand. The secret guard stuffed the silver note into his arms. Ning Shu said again, "Go to the bank to exchange for some broken silver. Don't take the silver note directly to buy things." The secret guard nodded and said, "I understand." Ning Shu, he felt that this guy was unreliable. The secret guard jumped out of the window again and disappeared. In the evening, Situ Qingyu came over and prepared a large table of delicacies for Ning Shu. Ning Shu was vigilant. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. After eating it, would you want to roll around with her? Bah, this old lady despises you. What haven't I eaten before? Situ Qingyu looked down at Ning Shu and said as if he was giving alms, "This is the food I prepared for you. Throw away your steamed bun." Ning Shu shook her head. "I still like steamed buns. I used to eat too many delicacies, but now I've changed my taste. I like to eat steamed buns." Situ Qingyu sneered. "Is it because of the regent that you like steamed buns so much? I heard that the regent helped you out, so you like to eat steamed buns now." Ning Shu, this brain hole, this logic, no one else, she ate steamed buns purely because they were free. When Situ Qingyu saw Ning Shu's silence, it was obvious that she had acquiesced to his words. His eyes turned red and he roared, "Mu Yen Luo, how dare you look down on this general? You have to eat today whether you want to or not." Ding, abuse points, 5. Current abuse points, 35. 2333, Ning Shu was not used to the system having such a strong presence at all. The previous system was silent from beginning to end, but the updated system kept popping up from time to time, which annoyed Ning Shu to no end. As if sensing Ning Shu's annoyance, 2333 felt wronged and said, "I'm letting you know the progress of the mission. How can you dislike me so much? I'm so sad, sob sob sob." Ning Shu heard the system's cries and shuddered. Fuck, this system is so cheap. Ning Shu basically did not do anything, and then the abuse points reached 35. These abuse points were all caused by Situ Qingyu's own self-abuse. He was sensitive and had an inferiority complex. Any action could make Situ Qingyu feel uncomfortable, and any action could touch the darkness in his heart. TSK, TSK, TSK. Sure enough, he couldn't be the male lead if there was nothing wrong with him. Ning Shu raised her chin and looked at the dishes on the table. She said disdainfully, "This is nothing. I used to eat these every day, and I've long been sick of them. Now that you're taking these out, it's a disgrace." Situ Qingyu's face was livid. He looked at Ning Shu and said maliciously, "Every time I see you acting so high and mighty, I want to trample on your pride and make you crawl under my feet." He had an inferiority complex, but he couldn't bear to see others being proud. Chapter 133. In the end, Situ Qingyu was so angry that he flipped the table. The dishes and plates on the table fell to the ground. Broken porcelain and all kinds of vegetable soup were mixed together. It was a mess. Damn, so what if you're strong? I can still flip the table if I master a peerless martial art. Guard this courtyard well. Don't send food inside. Situ Qingyu roared at the guard at the door, then turned to Ning Shu and said coldly, "Since you don't want to eat, don't eat in the future." Ning Shu snorted proudly and looked at Situ Qingyu with contempt and pity. Situ Qingyu's aura became violent and he said maliciously, "You don't want your eyes anymore. How dare you look at me like that?" Situ Qingyu sneered and said, "It's said that you can get a woman's heart if you get her body. Don't be so proud now. When I get on top of you, you'll cry and beg me to get on top of you. Ning Shu was speechless. Situ Qingyu walked toward Ning Shu with lust in his eyes. Obviously, he wanted to rape Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at Situ Qingyu without changing his expression and said indifferently, "You smell like leftovers." When Situ Qingyu flipped the table just now, the soup spilled on him. Situ Qingyu's face was livid. "Mu Yanluo, you've challenged my patience time and time again. I'll make you pay the price." With that, he turned and left. Ning Shu curled her lips. She was really an extremely arrogant person, but at the same time, she was also an extremely self-abased person. Situ Qingyu didn't let anyone send food to the embroidery building. Sure enough, no one sent food in for several days. Ning Shu and Yuelan ate steamed buns every day. Sometimes, the square-faced shadow guard would bring in some food. Ning Shu's life was comfortable. Situ Qingyu thought that Mu Yanluo would come back to beg him, but she didn't come for several days. Seeing Ning Shu alive and kicking, Situ Qingyu sneered. This woman still had a shadow guard. Situ Qingyu said maliciously, "If I kill your secret guard, what will you rely on?" Ning Shu chuckled and refused to talk to the lunatic. Situ Qingyu's expression turned cold. "I really don't know what you're so proud of. You're no longer the Prime Minister's daughter or the noble lady of Donghua Nation. You're my captive, my slave. Your life is in my hands. What you should do now is to please me and offer me your body instead of disobeying me like this. The consequences may not be something you can bear." Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu from above. Ning Shu was speechless. He felt too good about himself. Situ Qingyu saw that Ning Shu was stubborn and wanted to force himself on Ning Shu. Ning Shu blew the whistle without hesitation. A shadow guard in black jumped in through the window. Situ Qingyu looked at the guard coldly. "If I don't kill you today, I won't be Situ." The two of them fought together. This time, the guard didn't run away first. Instead, he fought with Situ Qingyu and used his true abilities. It seemed that he was evenly matched with Situ Qingyu. "General, the regent is here. He's waiting for you in the front hall." The guard outside the door shouted to Situ Qingyu. Situ Qingyu was slightly stunned. The shadow guard took advantage of this and slapped Situ Qingyu. Situ Qingyu groaned and covered his chest. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked coldly at the shadow guard and Ning Shu. "Very good, very good." The shadow guard jumped out of the window and ran away. Situ Qingyu glanced at Ning Shu and turned to leave. Ning Shu patted her chest and said, "I've finally dodged a calamity. Miss, let's get out of here. It's too dangerous." Yuelan said with a pale face. Ning Shu let out a long breath. After a while, a maid came over to Ning Shu and said, "The general asked you to go to the front hall. His Highness wants to see you. The general said that you should dress sloppily." Luo Junyun wanted to see her. "Dress sloppily? Yuelan, come and help me dress up. Make me as beautiful as possible." Ning Shu said to Yuelan. Yuelan immediately said, "Okay." Yuelan hoped that the regent could take her miss away from here. The maid heard Ning Shu's words and quickly said, "The general said that you should dress sloppily and put some dust on your face." Ning Shu and Yuelan ignored her. Under Yuelan's skillful hands, Ning Shu looked at her own face. She was so beautiful that she didn't dare to look directly at it. Ning Shu felt that he was about to be mesmerized by this face. The maid looked at Ning Shu in a daze, then shook her head and said, "You can't do this. The general will kill you. It's okay. Lead the way." Ning Shu clamped her buttocks tightly, not allowing her waist to sway. She walked towards the front hall elegantly. Ning Shu walked into the front hall. The atmosphere was not very good. Situ Qingyu's face was cold and Luo Junyun had a faint smile. The conversation between the two was very unpleasant. Seeing Ning Shu come in, Situ Qingyu and Luo Zhenyan were stunned. Situ Qingyu's face immediately darkened. He knew that the regent came for Mu Yenluo and told her not to stand out too much. But now, she was so beautiful. Cold and charming, with exquisite makeup. Situ Qingyu's heart was full of anger. He looked at Ning Shu as if he was looking at his prey, as if he would be torn apart by Ning Shu in the next moment. Luo Zhenyan looked at Ning Shu, his eyes full of amazement. His gaze was domineering and lingering, and there was a kind of determination in his eyes. He didn't expect this female slave to be so beautiful. She was really devastatingly beautiful. No wonder Situ Qingyu was unwilling to give her to him. Cough, cough. Do you still remember me? Luo Zhenyan asked. He walked in front of Ning Shu. There was a smell of ambergris on his body and a strong masculine aura that made people's hearts tremble. Ning Shu was now pretending to be noble and cold, but when he opened his mouth, his voice was extremely rough. Who are you? Luo Zhenyan was stunned when he heard such a coarse voice. He felt that it was too out of place. Such a beautiful person should have a soft and gentle voice. It was charming, affectionate, and melodious. What's wrong with your voice? Are you injured? Luo Zhenyan asked with a frown. Don't worry. I will heal your voice. Ning Shu raised an eyebrow and didn't say anything. Seeing that Ning Shu didn't speak, Luo Zhenyan said eagerly, Have you forgotten? Bun, do you still remember Bun? We met at the bun shop. Ning Shu pursed her lips. When they were at the bun shop, she didn't have any image at all. How could Luo Zhenyan be so sure that it was her? Sure enough, he had taken a fancy to Mu Yenluo's beauty, but after getting her, he treated her like dirt, raped her, and sexually abused her. Basically, when Mu Yenluo was on her period, it was Luo Zhenyan's exclusive time. What a unique taste. Leave, Situ Qingyu said coldly to Ning Shu. Before Ning Shu could speak, Luo Zhenyan said, Situ Qingyu, I am here to take her away today. Situ Qingyu sneered. Your Highness, she belongs to me now. Are you going to snatch her away? Oh, hee hee. Was he going to snatch her away now? Chapter 134. Situ Qingyu didn't want Ning Shu and Luo Zhenyan to leave at all. This was somewhat different from the plot. Ning Shu understood after thinking for a while. Situ Qingyu hadn't gotten her body yet. What he couldn't get was good. If he got it too easily, he wouldn't cherish it. Now, there was a prince regent who obviously had bad intentions. His status was higher than his power was greater than his, and he was as handsome as him. Situ Qingyu immediately felt a sense of crisis in his heart. For the sake of his male dignity, he had to go all out. Food was for the fragrance, and women were for the beauty. Humans were indeed despicable. Luo Zhenyan said domineeringly, such a beauty should be taken good care of and not suffer under the hands of a butcher like you. General Situ, don't you think you're going overboard by tying her up and parading her through the streets in public? She's my slave. I can do whatever I want. What does it have to do with your highness? Situ Qingyu said with a cold face. I've said it before. She's mine from now on. Even if she's a slave, I can still give her a noble status. Situ Qingyu, remember your status. What right do you have to fight with me? Luo Zhenyan said with disdain. Situ Qingyu hated people who looked down on him the most. Now that Luo Zhenyan was using his status to look down on him and oppress him, Situ Qingyu's face instantly turned ugly. Then what does your highness want? I, Situ Qingyu, will accompany you to the end. Situ Qingyu's face stiffened, and he didn't give in. Ning Shu watched the two men fight from the side. As the person involved, she didn't have the right to speak. It was quite miserable. Ning Shu immediately looked at the two of them with a teary expression. She grabbed the clothes by her chest and looked like she was hurt. She said sadly, "You can do this. I'm a human, not a thing. I have my own thoughts. Why are you fighting over me? Can't you show me some respect?" Ning Shu wiped her tears and ran away with small steps, not caring if the people in the room were fighting or being gay. "Miss, wait for this servant." Yulan immediately chased after Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked back and saw that the little girl was running very fast. He quickly increased his speed. Yulan shouted from behind, "Miss, wait for this servant." Ning Shu was really tired from running. She held onto the railing and gasped for breath. Yulan almost fainted. She gasped for breath and asked, "Miss, why are you running so fast? You chased me with all your might. How could I not run?" Ning Shu said, "I'll just treat it as training my body." The two returned to the embroidery building. Ning Shu poured a large glass of water. Yulan pursed her lips and asked, "Miss, why didn't you go with the regent? The regent is much better than this general. This general even beat people." Situ Qingyu was a violent maniac. Ning Shu propped up her chin and looked at Yulan. She lifted her chin with her finger and said rudely, "Little girl, you're not bad looking." "Miss, I'm serious. Besides, I'm not as good looking as you. Miss stays in the boudoir, but your reputation has spread throughout the Donghua nation." Yulan said shyly. "Reputation? Bah, it was reputation. It made every man want to sleep with Mu Yenluo, the most beautiful woman in the world. Alright, I know what I'm doing. Why did your square-faced brother bring food?" Ning Shu touched her stomach and felt a little hungry. "Miss, what are you talking about? What square-faced brother? The secret guard is not my brother at all." Yulan immediately said, "I don't have such an ugly brother." Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu turned around and saw the secret guard climbing the window and entering the room. He probably heard what Yulan said. The secret guard threw the food on the table and snorted at Yulan. She was talking behind someone's back and was heard by someone. Yulan blushed and didn't say anything. Ning Shu comforted her and said, "Yulan was just joking. You're not ugly. You're unique. I've never seen such a square face like yours. What a square face, so square. I reckon you're the only one in the world who looks like this. You should be proud." The secret guard was speechless. The secret guard glanced at Ning Shu and Yulan with his exposed eyes and jumped out of the window. Yulan was a little uneasy. She asked Ning Shu, who was eating a chicken, "Miss, the secret guard won't be angry and ignore us because we said he's ugly?" Ning Shu sucked the meat on her finger and said calmly, "It's okay. I just comforted him." Yulan looked at Ning Shu. "Miss, were you comforting him? I think you're rubbing salt on his wound." It was unknown if it was because of Ning Shu's declaration that she was the female lead, but Situ Qingyu looked at her with a complicated gaze. Ning Shu's intestines were in a knot, but her face was noble and cold. "I'm so cold and fragile. Do you have the heart to hurt me?" Now that Situ Qingyu didn't restrict Ning Shu's movements, he allowed her to wander around the Prime Minister's residence. When it was time for dinner, someone sent food over. Yulan was dumbfounded. She couldn't understand the feeling of going from hell to heaven. Not only was Yulan dumbfounded, but Ning Shu was also baffled. Could it be that Situ Qingyu was going to take the warm route? Or was it because of her deafening declaration? However, Ning Shu didn't refuse food. She also accepted the jewelry that Situ Qingyu sent over. Then, she turned around and asked the secret guard to sell them for money. After this stop at the Prime Minister's residence, she still had to travel around the world to visit the Imperial Merchant's residence. Then, she still had to find a teacher in the remote countryside, a divine doctor who liked to live in the forest, and the leader of the demonic sect who lived halfway up the mountain like a caveman. What was she going to do if she didn't have money? However, the secret guard didn't get much money. Ning Shu suspected that Situ Qingyu didn't send fake goods, or that the secret guard was a fool who was forced to be fooled. Ning Shu stood in the pavilion and looked at Situ Qingyu, who was practicing his sword outside. Petals swirled in the air, the sound of the sword resounded, and the light of the sword flashed. Coupled with the beautiful man Situ Qingyu, it was as beautiful as a painting. There should be a beauty playing the zither in such a scene, but Ning Shu didn't know how to play the zither at all. Situ Qingyu stopped his moves, and Ning Shu immediately applauded. "General, you've really played a cheap trick." Situ Qingyu and Ning Shu smiled faintly. Their forehead was slightly sweaty. When they smiled like this, they felt as if the school hunk was walking toward them with a basketball in his arms. It had a strong smell of hormones. "Mu Yen Luo, this general wants to ask you. Are you willing to accompany this general?" Situ Qingyu asked Ning Shu in a deep voice. The current Situ Qingyu seemed to have restrained his hostility and ruthlessness. He looked masculine and valiant, with a thin waist and narrow buttocks, especially able to make a woman's heart ripple. Ning Shu was even more puzzled. Why did he suddenly change his style? Ning Shu asked, "Why? Why are you suddenly treating me so well? I feel overwhelmed by the favor and my heart trembles. I'm afraid you're going to do something to me." Situ Qingyu was speechless. Chapter 135. Situ Qingyu wasn't the only one who became more attentive to Ning Shu. Even Luo Zhenyan came to the Prime Minister's residence every day to deliver things. They were all treasures and valuable trinkets. Ning Shu was even more confused. These two people were wooing her. Ning Shu covered her face with her hands. She didn't expect that someone with less than 5 points of charm would suddenly be wooed one day. She didn't get this kind of treatment when she was cannon fodder. But soon, Ning Shu couldn't be bothered anymore. The secret guard said to Ning Shu directly, "These two people are making a bet to see who you will fall in love with. Don't ask me how I know. I just know." "Alright, I overheard it." Ning Shu felt heartbroken. After all this time, it was Situ Qingyu and Luo Zhenyan who made a bet that the beauty's heart would belong to whoever could win her heart. Ning Shu was speechless. Indeed, a dog can't change its spots. She freaking thought that she had become charming just because she was wearing the female lead's skin. It was all because of the attraction between the male and female leads. It had nothing to do with her personal charm. Now, Luo Zhenyan was loitering in front of her again. Ning Shu looked at Luo Zhenyan in front of her silently. His expression was that of a domineering CEO, making Ning Shu's balls hurt. "Woman, come with me. I can give you a noble status and a richer life." Luo Zhenyan reached out his hand to Ning Shu. "I will love you dearly. I heard that there are more than 30 concubines in the prince's residence. If I go to the prince's residence, won't they eat me up?" Ning Shu looked terrified and helpless. She shook her head and said, "There aren't that many women here. I'm willing to scatter my harem for you." "I only want you," Luo Zhenyan said excitedly. Luo Zhenyan said agitatedly. His saliva almost splashed onto Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu hurriedly covered her face with a handkerchief, revealing a pair of watery eyes. "But this little girl doesn't dare to believe your highness. What about those girls who were chased away? From now on, this prince will only have you as his woman. This prince will not touch other women. You don't have to care about those women. This prince will give them a sum of money, enough for them to live on," Ning Shu said affectionately. Ning Shu, fuck, what a scumbag. Fuck you. You chased me away just like that. This scumbag. Ning Shu's heart was filled with loathing for this person. He had never thought about how these women would live. This was the ancient times where hierarchy was strict. Even if the female lead Mu Yenluo and the 7 dwarves lived happily together, they had to find a place to live in seclusion and not in the open. Ning Shu picked up the cup on the stone table and splashed it on Luo Zhenyan's face. Scumbag, wash away your filthy soul. Ah, what's wrong with my hand? Why can't I control it? Sob sob sob. Ning Shu wiped his tears and ran out of the pavilion, ignoring Luo Zhenyan's shocked face. Miss, wait for this servant. Wait for this servant. Yuelan chased after Ning Shu. Miss, Ning Shu ran back to her embroidery building. Yuelan was almost out of breath from running. She stammered, Miss, why don't you wait for this servant every time? Ning Shu poured a cup of tea and took a deep breath. She said to Yuelan, your miss is going to leave this place. What are your plans? This servant will follow Mississippi. This servant is Mrs. Person in life and will be Mrs. Ghost in death. Miss, please don't leave this servant behind. Yuelan's expression was heroic and stern. Ning Shu didn't want to be entangled with these 2 people anymore. She wanted to leave as soon as possible. But before she left, she had to teach the general and the prince a lesson. She didn't get raped by these 2 people. Half of the mission was completed. At least to some extent, she had avoided the plot. She couldn't delay any longer. If these 2 lost their patience and raped her, Ning Shu wouldn't be able to find a place to cry. Ning Shu took out the whistle that was tucked deep in her cleavage and blew it. After a while, a black-clothed and masked shadow guard came in through the window. Ning Shu looked at his disguise. It was bad enough that he was ugly, but how could he ruin himself like this? You're hopeless. Shadow guard, go prepare a carriage and some dry food. We're leaving. Ning Shu looked at the shadow guard seriously and said, the fates of the 3 of us are in your hands. Do your best. The shadow guard looked at Ning Shu. Why do you want to leave? I think these 2 are dragons and phoenixes. They both like you now. Why do you want to leave? You don't understand love at all. Ning Shu raised his chin. His face was melancholic and haggard. The shadow guard's eyes swept over Ning Shu's face and said disdainfully, you've lost your mind. Then, she jumped out of the window. Ning Shu was eating dinner when Situ Qingyu came. He sat across from Ning Shu and suddenly reached out to grab Ning Shu's hand. Immediately, Ning Shu felt that he had hair all over his body. Ning Shu didn't say anything. He just silently wanted to pull his hand back. Situ Qingyu held Ning Shu's hand tightly. Ning Shu tried to pull his hand back, but Situ Qingyu immediately let go of Ning Shu's hand. Then, with a slap, Ning Shu's hand hit his own face and then fell to the ground. Miss, are you okay? Yuelan immediately came up to help Ning Shu. Ning Shu felt that his butt was numb, but his face looked noble and indifferent. Ning Shu thought, this damn bitch. Why are you looking for me? Ning Shu secretly rubbed his butt. Situ Qingyu looked at Ning Shu with a pair of blurred and painful eyes. This gaze made Ning Shu's body tremble. Oh my, what a touching gaze. Situ Qingyu wanted to hold Ning Shu's hand again, but Ning Shu immediately put his hand behind his back. Situ Qingyu said, Yenluo, are you still angry at me for bullying you before? Is that why you're so cold to me now? Yes. Ning Shu shook his head and said, Yenluo knows that the general doesn't like women. In the past, women made me eat shit and lick shoes. I've been abused a lot, so I can understand why the general treats me like this. However, Yenluo feels wronged. After all, Yenluo didn't have you, didn't make you eat shit, didn't make you lick shoes, didn't make you bark like a dog, didn't ride you like a horse, didn't treat you like a human, so Yenluo feels wronged. Ding. Abuse points, 5, 10, 20. Current abuse points, 70. 2333 sounded very excited, although he didn't know why a mainframe would be so excited. Ning Shu saw that Situ Qingyu's face was trembling violently, and his eyes were red. When he looked at him, there was an uncontrollable murderous intent in his eyes. Ning Shu hurriedly widened his innocent eyes and covered his mouth with his hand. His face was full of guilt. He hurriedly said, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought this up. Even if you have a terrible past, in Yanluo's heart, the general will always be an indomitable spirit." What was an indomitable spirit for bullying a woman? Those women shouldn't have treated you like this in the past. You deserve it. If it was Yanluo wouldn't have treated you like this. She would have killed him. General, you won't blame me, right? I didn't mean to say these things. So what if he said it? Chapter 136. After being lectured by Ning Shu, Situ Qingyu forcibly suppressed the violence in his heart and wanted to grab Ning Shu's hand. However, Ning Shu's hand was behind her back, so he could only put his hand on Ning Shu's shoulder and said affectionately, "Mu Yanluo, I love you." Ning Shu suddenly showed a sour expression and grimaced. Situ Qingyu lowered his head and wanted to kiss Ning Shu. Looking at his face getting closer and closer, Ning Shu really wanted to vomit. He had said so much just to get his hands on her body. Ning Shu turned her head and avoided Situ Qingyu's lips. She said sadly, "General, do you want Yanluo?" A trace of impatience flashed across Situ Qingyu's face. The bet he made with the regent was just a game of hunting, but this woman really put on airs, which made Situ Qingyu's heart churn with anger. Ning Shu naturally saw Situ Qingyu's unkind eyes, but she put on a silly and sweet expression and said loudly, "General, please respect me. If you love me, you should respect me. We haven't gotten married yet, so you can't do such an impolite thing. Do you love my body?" A trace of displeasure flashed across Situ Qingyu's face. He held Ning Shu's shoulder and said, "I was attracted to you and couldn't help myself. I naturally respect you and will marry you in a palanquin. Just wait to become my wife." Ning Shu's teeth ached even more. She couldn't help but lower her head and show a look of disdain. She said shyly, "Thank you, General. General, you can go first. I'm a little tired." Ning Shu turned and went into the room, closing the door with a bang. Situ Qingyu's face darkened. He snorted almost undetectably and turned to leave with his hands behind his back. Ning Shu saw Situ Qingyu leave through the crack in the door and couldn't help rubbing her cheeks. Situ Qingyu wanted to break the rules of the game. She would belong to whoever could win her heart. Situ Qingyu wanted to push her directly just now. Get lost. It seemed that he was going to leave this place. When Situ Qingyu got impatient, she would be waiting to be raped. The next night, Ning Shu prepared a table full of sumptuous dishes and several jars of fine wine. Then, she put a big bag of medicine in each of the jars. She rolled up her sleeves and put her hands into the jars. She stirred vigorously twice to let the medicine powder completely dissolve in the wine. After everything was ready, Ning Shu waited for Situ Qingyu and Luo Zhenyan to come over with a noble and cold expression. Situ Qingyu and Luo Zhenyan came together. When the two of them walked into the room, the whole room was lit up by their radiance. Ning Shu sighed in his heart. He was such a beauty, but he was a pervert. "Please have a seat. I invited you to dinner today because I have something to tell you." Ning Shu politely asked Situ Qingyu and Luo Zhenyan to sit down. Luo Zhenyan looked at Ning Shu and said, "You're very beautiful today." Ning Shu smiled shyly and touched her face. She held her breath until her face turned red. Then, she said, "Thank you for the compliment, Your Highness. I don't deserve it. You're really beautiful." "Yanluo deserves the title of the most beautiful woman in the world," Situ Qingyu said. Ning Shu lowered her head and smiled shyly again. She placed two big bowls in front of them and said, "Yanluo knows that I'm not beautiful. It's already Yanluo's greatest fortune to be able to receive Your Highness's and General's pity. As Ning Shu spoke, she poured wine into their bowls. Today, I invited the two of you here to tell you my true thoughts. Yan Luo, just say what you want to say, Luo Zhenyan said anxiously. Ning Shu held her breath again until her face turned red. Then, she stamped her foot shyly and said, Yan Luo really doesn't want to say it. You guys drink first. Luo Zhenyan was the first to finish the entire bowl of wine, not leaving a single drop behind. Situ Qingyu did not move. He was a man of war, so he was naturally extremely vigilant. Moreover, Situ Qingyu did not trust Ning Shu. Ning Shu saw that Luo Zhenyan had finished the wine and became even more shy. She lowered her head and said shyly, Your Highness, you're amazing. After drinking a bowl of wine, Luo Zhenyan's face was a little red. When he heard Ning Shu's words, he puffed out his chest. Ning Shu said, I'm a lord who's second only to you. I'll treat you well in the future. Ning Shu looked at Luo Zhenyan with sparkling eyes. She looked as if she loved him so much that she couldn't say it out loud. Situ Qingyu frowned and snorted. He also finished the wine in his bowl. Ning Shu immediately said, General, you're as amazing as His Highness. Ning Shu poured more wine for Situ Qingyu. General, you've been through countless battles and you're heroic. Yan Luo has never seen a man like you who gives me a sense of security. Luo Zhenyan raised his wine bowl and said provocatively to Situ Qingyu, General Situ, I'll toast you. Situ Qingyu's expression didn't change. He clinked glasses with Luo Zhenyan and they both drank. Ning Shu stamped his feet anxiously and said, Don't drink because of this. Eat. Drinking like this is bad for your health. Can you give me some face and not do this for me? Luo Zhenyan reached out to stop Ning Shu from speaking. He said indifferently, This is a duel between men. It has nothing to do with you. Ning Shu clutched his chest and shook his head with a twisted face. But Yan Luo doesn't want you to do this. Don't do this. Drink, drink. It's best if you die from drinking. Don't worry about it, Situ Qingyu said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu was obedient. She watched the two men compete in drinking. At first, they used bowls, but later, they drank directly from the jug. Ning Shu sat on the stool and crossed her legs as she watched the two men drink to their deaths. In the end, they were drunk and passed out on the ground. Girl, it's time to go to work. Ning Shu said to Yuelan. Yuelan held the package in her arms and said, Miss, are we leaving now? Wait. I'll be a good person to the end. Drag them to the bed, Ning Shu said as he rolled up his sleeves. Yuelan nodded obediently and put down the package. She pulled Situ Qingyu's arm and dragged him to the bed. Oh my, I didn't expect this girl to be so strong. Ning Shu grabbed Luo Zhenyan's clothes and used all his strength to drag him. Ning Shu's face turned red, but Luo Zhenyan on the ground didn't move at all. Miss, what are you doing? Yuelan asked Ning Shu. We should go. The secret guards are still waiting for us. Ning Shu panted and said, Come and help me. I can't move him. Yuelan hurried over and helped Ning Shu drag Luo Zhenyan onto the bed. Ning Shu reached out and unbuttoned Luo Zhenyan's clothes. After a while, Luo Zhenyan was naked and his most private parts were exposed. Yuelan was dumbfounded. She covered her eyes and asked, Miss, what are you doing? Be a good person. Ning Shu swiftly took off Situ Qingyu's clothes and walked around with him. Miss. Yuelan covered her eyes with her hands and looked at the two men's bodies through the gaps of her fingers. Chapter 137. Ning Shu let the two naked men hug each other and laughed. Congratulations on opening the door to a new world. Let's go. Ning Shu said to Yulan. Seeing that Yulan was still looking at the two men on the bed, he pulled Yulan's collar and walked out of the room. Miss, I feel very excited, Yulan said to Ning Shu. Her eyes were emitting a green light, which was especially terrifying in the dark night. Ning Shu was speechless. What are you excited about? Seeing the two of them lying on the bed, this servant's heart thumped, 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 the roots of her hair stood on end, and goosebumps rose all over her body. In short, I was very excited. Yulan's face was completely red. Ning Shu's jaw dropped to the ground. Situ Qingyu and Luo Junyan were not the only ones who were about to open the door to a new world. There was also Yulan. Yulan still wanted to go into the room, but Ning Shu grabbed her collar and blew the whistle. Then, a black shadow jumped in through the window and immediately jumped out again. Ning Shu was speechless. She and Yulan were clearly in the courtyard. Why did the square-faced secret guard jump into the room? Have you prepared the things I asked you to prepare? Ning Shu's secret guard asked. The secret guard nodded and said, the carriage is outside the courtyard wall. We can leave soon. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief and quickly said, let's go. The three of them avoided the patrol team in the residence and reached the courtyard wall. Ning Shu asked, how do we get over? The secret guard said pretentiously, I'll carry you over. Then, the secret guard held one of them with each arm and stepped on the courtyard wall, trying to fly over. In the end, the secret guard overestimated his ability. The three of them fell to the ground and rolled into a ball. Can you do it or not? Ning Shu patted the dust off his body. It was unbearable to meet such an unreliable secret guard. The secret guard said, I can climb over the wall by myself, but I didn't expect that I couldn't climb over with two people. Ning Shu was speechless. Forget it, Yuelan and I will just go crawl through the dog hole, Ning Shu said snappily. No. Yulan said resolutely and decisively. Ning Shu said, this servant will go through the dog hole. Miss and the shadow guards will climb the wall. Both of them were running away, so how could there be a difference between the two? He was simply drunk. In the end, Ning Shu still held his chest and squeezed out of the dog hole. When he came out, Ning Shu said to Yuelan, quickly support your young miss. Your young miss's chest hurts. Miss, do you want this servant to give you a massage? Yulan reached out her hand to massage Ning Shu's chest. Ning Shu was speechless. Duh. The shadow guard came over with a carriage. Ning Shu and Yulan hurriedly got on the carriage. Secret guard Ning Shu asked, Miss, where are you going? E-City. The black-bellied imperial merchant was in that place. E-City wasn't far from here, so it would only take a day's journey. Does Miss have any relatives in E-City? The shadow guard asked, or does Master want Miss to meet up with them in E-City? No, I just want to go to E-City. Ning Shu said very willfully. The carriage left the capital. Looking at the capital's city gates getting further and further away, Ning Shu let out a deep breath. At least she wasn't pushed down by those two men. She didn't get pregnant, she didn't have a miscarriage, and she didn't get pushed down when her period came. After a busy night, Ning Shu also felt tired. He slept back to back with Yulan. Prime Minister's Manor, in the embroidery building. The room was filled with a strong smell of sex. Under the moonlight, the transparent gauze curtain could faintly make out the movements of the people on the bed. One was half kneeling, the other was crawling on the bed. They were constantly moving. Low panting, moaning, and crying sounds mixed with pain and pleasure. It was ambiguous. The two men were having sex, dripping with sweat. Their skin was touching, and the places where they were joined were dripping with blood. It made people feel even more tyrannical. Ding, abuse points 100. Ding, abuse points 100. Ning Shu woke up in the morning to 2333's happy voice. There were so many aphrodisiacs. He hoped that these two guys would die from the explosion. These aphrodisiacs were all produced by the system, and their efficacy was guaranteed. They were also on credit with 2333. When it was time to return the points, he would have to pay the interest. Ning Shu gritted his teeth and exchanged for the aphrodisiac. Damn, he felt that 2333's system was a blood-sucking existence. He stretched lazily. Life was still beautiful. Ning Shu lifted the curtain and saw that the carriage was parked in a forest by the side of the road. The shadow guard driving the carriage set up a fire not far away. There was a stove above the fire, boiling water. Ning Shu stretched out his leg and kicked the sleeping Yulan. Yulan immediately jumped up, but her head hit the roof of the carriage. Yulan covered her head. Ning Shu felt wronged and asked, "Miss, what's wrong?" Ning Shu walked to the shadow guard's side and sat down. He asked the shadow guard, "Good morning. How far are we from E City?" "It's not far. Let's eat something and leave quickly. Maybe the general and the prince will send people to arrest us." The shadow guard made some food for Ning Shu and Yulan and poured some water for them to drink. She was wrong. This shadow guard was actually quite reliable. Ning Shu ate a biscuit and asked the shadow guard, "Why do you protect me?" "My father asked you to protect me, and you protect me. Don't you feel unsatisfied?" The shadow guard turned his square face to Ning Shu and said, "I was adopted by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister gave me food to eat and a place to sleep. Protecting Miss is my responsibility. Until Miss no longer needs my protection, or until I die before Mississippi." Ning Shu looked at him and suddenly felt that his square face was so handsome and charming. This guy probably didn't have any more scenes because he was killed. After a casual breakfast, Ning Shu and the other two headed for E City. They had no idea how furious Situ Qingyu and Luo Junyan were. The entire capital was filled with wanted posters for her. Situ Qingyu hated women. Every day, he was mocked by Ning Shu, who acted noble in front of him and stepped on his wounds. He was disgusted with women. Now that he was rolling around with a man, he completely broke the ice. He felt that it was better to be with a man. During this process, he could be like a man, but he could also be like a woman. This feeling was too wonderful. Situ Qingyu's biggest goal now was to get Luo Junyan into bed again. However, Luo Junyan felt extremely disgusted. He was the high and mighty regent, but he actually slept with a man and was slept with by another man. Now, the hole in his back was bleeding every time he went to the toilet. Luo Junyan even had the thought of dying. Especially when he felt Situ Qingyu's scorching and predatory gaze, Luo Junyan's heart convulsed. He was a man. How could he be with another man? Moreover, this one was a general whose status was inferior to his. Mu Yen Luo, that bitch, he would definitely torture her to death once he caught her. Even that wouldn't be able to relieve the hatred in his heart. In short, this was a story of oppression and being oppressed. The dark and black-bellied attacker and the tsundere victim. Situ Qingyu and Luo Junyan restarted their sadistic love story. It basically had nothing to do with Ning Shu. The two members of Mu Yenluo's harem were gay. Chapter 138. E City was very prosperous. It was a city comparable to the capital. The people living in the capital were all high officials and nobles, but many of the people living in E City were rich people. It was a city filled with rich people. Two women in ragged clothes were pulling a tattered handcart. On the handcart was something wrapped in a tattered straw mat, revealing a pair of dirty feet. At a glance, one could tell that the person under the straw mat was a dead person. Seeing this scene, everyone unconsciously avoided them. The people pulling the handcart were Ning Shu and Yuelan. The person lying on the handcart pretending to be dead was the shadow guard brother. Ning Shu was so tired that he wanted to die. He looked around and found a lively place. He stopped the handcart and worked with Yuelan to lift the shadow guard out of the handcart and placed him on the street. Then, He took out a wooden board. On the wooden board, he wrote, "Sell your body to bury your father." Ning Shu knelt in front of the shadow guard and crawled on his body. She wailed, "Father, daughter has let you down, let you down. Miss, don't be sad. Master's spirit in heaven will see Miss filial piety." Yuelan first comforted Ning Shu. Then, she threw herself on the shadow guard and wailed, "Master, you died so miserably. Master, master." Ning Shu saw that the place Yuelan was hugging was a bit sensitive. It was probably the place where the shadow guard was. However, Yuelan didn't notice anything and wailed desperately. Ning Shu felt the shadow guard under the straw mat move. The straw mat covering him also moved. Ning Shu hurriedly pulled Yuelan up. Yuelan wiped her tears and asked, "Miss, what's wrong?" Ning Shu wanted to say that she was pressing on his dick, but seeing Yuelan's dumbfounded expression, he said, "Don't touch father's body." Yuelan let out two ohs as she knelt at the side, tears dripping down her cheeks. Ning Shu felt deep veneration for her. This was the real movie queen. Ning Shu and Yuelan's movements could be heard from half the street, attracting many onlookers. However, seeing Ning Shu and Yuelan's unkempt appearance, no one stood out to buy Ning Shu. Ning Shu did not mind. His target was not these people. He was waiting for the male lead, Huang Shangjun, a rich and powerful man. "Miss, what should we do now? It's been so long since someone asked us about the price." Yuelan asked. Ning Shu said, "Don't worry." Yuelan saw that no one would ask her about it for a while, so she knelt on the ground and stopped wailing. She wiped her tears with a dirty handkerchief. The people around came and went, but no one came up to ask about the price. Ning Shu was a little regretful. If he had known, he would not have put himself in such a sorry state. He made himself too pitiful and no one asked. Ning Shu was about to fall asleep while kneeling on the ground. Her head was nodding off bit by bit. Beside her, Yuelan had already fallen asleep while leaning on the handcart. She was drooling. "Sell your body to bury your father." A low and sexy voice sounded. Ning Shu's drowsiness disappeared and he quickly pushed Yuelan, who was sleeping next to him. As soon as Yuelan opened her eyes, she immediately wailed. "Master, it's this servant's fault. I didn't protect Miss well and let Miss fall to the point of selling her body to bury her father. Miss, this servant is pitiful." Mississippi. Yuelan hugged Ning Shu and wailed. Ning Shu used all his strength to pull Yuelan's arms away and said sadly to the person who came, "Young master, this little girl is from Chuzhou City. I really have no other way, so I sold my body to bury my father. Raise your head and let me have a look." Ning Shu immediately raised his head and looked at the man. The background around the man was blurred. He was a shining existence. This was definitely Nanshujin. Qi Sheng's body flowed with a kind of gentle and cruel beauty. He was steady and gave people a sense of danger. His eyes were deep and calm, as if something was surging. This was the two-faced imperial merchant, Qi Sheng. Qi Sheng narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Ning Shu's dirty face. He closed the folding fan and gently hit the palm of his hand. He said, "Why don't you wash your face and make it prettier so that you can sell it at a higher price?" Before Ning Shu could say anything, Yuelan said, "My miss said that she doesn't care about our appearance. Anyone who helps us is a good person." Qi Sheng was wearing a brocade robe. Every part of his body was incomparably exquisite. Even the pendant of his folding fan was made of round jade. At first glance, people could tell that he was from a wealthy family. His every move carried with it the aura of wealth. Qi Sheng squatted down and lifted the tattered straw mat with his folding fan. He tilted his head and looked at the shadow guard's square face. Then he looked at Ning Shu and said, "You look a little different from your father." Ning Shu said indifferently, "My mother's beauty neutralizes my father's ugliness." Ning Shu felt wronged for the shadow guard. Not only was he ugly, but he also looked old. Qi Sheng didn't even question the shadow guard's age. How could he have a daughter as old as her? Ning Shu looked at Qi Sheng expectantly. Young master, do you need a maid? As long as you bury my father, I will be your maid. Qi Sheng opened his fan with a schwa sound and said arrogantly, how much money do you want? Ning Shu stretched out a finger. Qi Sheng glanced at Ning Shu's finger. 1 tael of silver. Fuck, 1 tael of silver wasn't enough. They were pretending to be dead and crying. It wasn't enough to buy 3 bowls of noodles. Rich people were all stingy. Ning Shu said shyly to Qi Sheng, young master, 1 tael of silver is a little too little. It can't even buy a coffin. Qi Sheng waved his folding fan and said indifferently, say it. How much? My father used to be an official of the imperial court. Although he was a 7th-ranked minor official, he was still an official. If he was buried so carelessly, how could he face his ancestors? So young master, can you raise the price a little? Ning Shu pulled Yuelan over. In the future, both of us will be your maids. You said so much just to raise the price. Qi Sheng was incomparably indifferent. How much? 10,000 taels of silver. Ning Shu said sonorously. Qi Sheng's expression didn't change. Ning Shu's eyelids twitched. He was indeed a black-bellied imperial merchant. Qi Sheng stretched out 5 fingers. Ning Shu frowned and asked, 5,000 taels of silver. 5 taels of silver. If you don't want to, then forget it. Qi Sheng said indifferently and turned to leave. Ning Shu saw that Qi Sheng really left. He quickly stood up and stepped over the shadow guard. He caught up with Qi Sheng and said, young master, please wait. Pft, cough cough cough. The secret guard that was stepped on by Ning Shu coughed violently. Yuelan was dumbfounded and didn't know what to do. Ning Shu immediately pounced on him and wailed, Father, do you have something to tell your daughter? It's all your daughter's fault for not being able to give you a proper funeral, so that you can't see your ancestors. The shadow guard glared at Ning Shu and closed his eyes as if he was dead. Ning Shu immediately wailed, Father. Yuelan also wailed, Master, Master. Qi Sheng raised his eyebrows. He walked over and put his hand on the tip of the shadow guard's nose. Ning Shu said, my condolences. Ning Shu, oh, really dead? Chapter 139. She had only stepped on him once, but she had killed the shadow guard. Qi Sheng took out an ingot of silver and threw it to Ning Shu. He said, this is 20 taels. Bury your father and then go to the Qi residence. Thank you, young master. Ning Shu put away the silver and worked with Yuelan to put the secret guard on the cart and headed out of the city. Ning Shu and Yuelan pulled the cart and ran quickly. Qi Sheng raised his eyebrows. He suddenly felt that he had been cheated of his silver. Had he been cheated of his nickname, Fox Qi? When they reached the small forest outside the city, Ning Shu lifted the broken straw mat and patted the secret guard's face. Hey, wake up, wake up. Yuelan's face was a little pale. Ning Shu asked, Miss, he can't really be dead, right? Yuelan also joined in the slapping. While crying, she slapped the secret guard's face and pinched his philtrum. She shouted, wake up, wake up. After a long while, the shadow guard coughed and woke up. His face was still very square before, but now it was swollen and much rounder. The secret guard touched his face. What did you do? Sob, sob, sob. You finally woke up. Miss and I thought you were dead. Yuelan cried with joy. Without you to protect me and Miss, what would we do? The secret guard touched his face and said with a grimace, I used the turtle breath technique and held my breath. Otherwise, I would have been exposed. After being stepped on by you, my internal injuries flared up again. I was injured when I fought with that general. The secret guard explained. Ning Shu instantly felt guilty and said, hurry up and treat your injuries. If you need any medicinal herbs, go buy them. Didn't I give you a lot of money before? That money is Mrs. How can I use it casually? The secret guard said. Ning Shu instantly felt that the secret guard's image was incomparably great. He said, it's fine. You can use it as you wish. Treat your injuries. Nothing is more important than your body. Seeing that the shadow guard had woken up, Yuelan also breathed a sigh of relief. She and the young miss were both women. Having a man who knew martial arts by their side was like a stabilizing needle. Especially since the young miss was so delicate, she looked as if she hadn't eaten at all. Ning Shu and Yuelan changed into slightly better cotton clothes. Ning Shu put on makeup for himself, imitating a big mouth, thick eyebrows, and a black mole on his chin. His image was as wretched as it could get. Ah! You are the young miss. Yuelan let out an earth-shattering wail, shaking the birds in the forest to the point that they flew away. Miss, what is it that you can't figure out? Why do you have to ruin yourself like this? Yuelan looked at Ning Shu with a pained expression. Ning Shu felt that it was very tiring to have such a girl by his side. Why are you so painstakingly going to the Qi residence? Don't tell me you're going to be a little maid in the future. The shadow guard frowned. Ning Shu waved his hand and said, my wish is to travel the world. This is only my temporary stronghold. When the time is up, I will leave. After a few days, Ning Shu brought Yuelan to the Qi residence. The shadow guard secretly protected Ning Shu and Yuelan. When they arrived at the entrance of the Qi residence, Ning Shu's gatekeeper grinned and said kindly, can you go and report that the person who will repay the kindness is here? The gatekeeper was frightened by Ning Shu's big smile. He immediately said, where did this ugly girl come from? You're coveting my young master's beauty. You're thinking too much and you still want to find a young master. Ning Shu said, you're thinking too much. You tell him. Ning Shu said to Yuelan, he doesn't believe that we're here to repay the kindness. With her hands on her hips, Yuelan told the entire story to the gatekeeper. Yuelan spoke very quickly, causing the gatekeeper's eyes to emit mosquito coils. That's what happened. Besides, how come my young miss and I only have 20 taels? Yuelan said with grievance. The gatekeeper immediately said, 20 taels is not a small amount. You and your young miss look like this. 20 taels is already my young master's kindness. Yuelan still wanted to say something, but was stopped by Ning Shu. A palanquin stopped at the entrance. Ning Shu felt that the person sitting in the palanquin must be the male lead. Ning Shu stared at the curtain. The curtain was lifted by a folding fan. Ning Shu looked at the folding fan and immediately shouted in a rough voice, I've finally found you. Qi Sheng, who had just gotten out of the palanquin, heard this voice and saw a woman with a bloody mouth wailing at him. The hand holding the folding fan suddenly trembled. He frowned and asked, who are you? 20 taels. A down-and-out young miss who sold her body to bury her father. Ning Shu pointed at his face. Look carefully. Qi Sheng looked away and said, your face was dirty before, but it still looked pretty. Why is it so ugly after washing it? Ning Shu was speechless. Thank you for the 20 taels, young master. This young miss has already buried my late father. Now, this young miss and this young miss's maids are young master's maids. A drop of water should be repaid with a spring of water. This young miss is a person with principles, integrity, and moral bottom line. Qi Sheng didn't look at Ning Shu's face and said indifferently, sure. This young master thought that you wouldn't come back. After that, Ning Shu and Yuelan stayed in the Qi residence. In any case, they still had some protagonist aura. Ning Shu and Yuelan stayed in the same room. Then, they changed into the uniform of the Qi residence's servant girls. Yuelan looked at Ning Shu and said sadly, "Miss, do you really want to be a maid here?" "Of course. After spending so much effort to come in, of course I want to be a maid." If she didn't get close to Qi Sheng, how could she get out of the plot? Even if she didn't come over, the plot would force her to meet Qi Sheng. In the plot, Mu Yan Luo was physically and mentally exhausted by Situ Qingyu and Luo Zhenyan. She even asked for a threesome and escaped when the two were not paying attention. As for how the delicate Mu Yan Luo escaped, it was simply a mystery. Although she escaped, Mu Yan Luo didn't have a single silver tael on her. She was a woman in her boudoir and basically didn't go out much. As soon as she went out, she was confused and looked confused and innocent. Someone tricked her into coming to the brothel with a bowl of noodles. The brothel keeper saw that Mu Yan Luo was a peerless beauty and decided to auction her. Moreover, Yi City was full of rich people. Auctioning such a peerless beauty could make the brothel overflow with oil. Mu Yan Luo was bought back by Qi Sheng at a high price. Although Mu Yan Luo avoided the brothel in her next 2 rebirths and didn't let herself fall into a brothel, she still couldn't avoid meeting these men. Even if she took a detour and didn't take this road, she would still meet these men. It really made her collapse. Qi Sheng, who was bought back, didn't do anything to Mu Yan Luo at first. He just put her in the backyard and didn't rape her violently like Situ Qingyu and Luo Zhenyan. Qi Sheng would visit Mu Yan Luo's courtyard whenever she was free. Then, she would chat with Mu Yan Luo about poems, songs, and ideals. In short, Qi Sheng looked like a gentle gentleman. Chapter 140. Mu Yan Luo felt respect from Qi Sheng. He was not like other men. He was very gentle. Although she was bought by Qi Sheng, he gave her a different feeling. In the Qi mansion, Mu Yan Luo felt an unprecedented peace. There were no 2 men eyeing her covetously and dragging her to do that kind of thing every day. Mu Yan Luo thought that her life would be peaceful like this. She had a good impression of Qi Sheng. She even confided in him about her identity and what had happened between the 2 men. Qi Sheng did not dislike Mu Yan Luo. He said that he had known her identity for a long time. After all, the streets of the capital were full of wanted posters for Mu Yan Luo. He did not care about her past. Mu Yan Luo was even more moved. So on a certain day and night, a man and a woman naturally had a heart-to-heart and body-to-body-to-body activities. Mu Yan Luo felt that this was the most comfortable time after the fall of Donghua Nation, although she spent every day waiting for Qi Sheng. However, Qi Sheng did not give Mu Yan Luo a definite identity. A concubine was not a concubine, and a wife was not a wife. Sometimes, Mu Yan Luo was sentimental and felt that Qi Sheng still disliked her because she had been intimate with 2 men and even had a miscarriage. For a long time, Qi Sheng did not come to see Mu Yan Luo. Mu Yan Luo waited bitterly for Qi Sheng every day. Later, she learned that Qi Sheng's childhood sweetheart had returned. Mu Yan Luo was originally a sentimental person. After learning the news, she ran to see Qi Sheng as if the sky had fallen. She happened to see Qi Sheng rolling with his childhood sweetheart. Mu Yan Luo questioned Qi Sheng. Qi Sheng hugged his childhood sweetheart and said that Mu Yan Luo was just a broken shoe, a prostitute he had bought. She could not compare to his true love at all. Then, Mu Yan Luo was abandoned and was completely dispirited. Although Qi Sheng disliked Mu Yan Luo, he was still very infatuated with Mu Yan Luo's body. He often went to see Mu Yan Luo. However, ever since she learned the heartbreaking truth from Qi Sheng, Mu Yan Luo no longer let Qi Sheng on the bed. She washed her face with tears all day long and stammered as if she was in great pain. Mu Yan Luo's appearance annoyed Qi Sheng a little. Although her body was wonderful and irresistible, he didn't want to do a woman lying like a dead fish. The more Qi Sheng was with his true love, the sadder Mu Yan Luo was. She couldn't eat well and couldn't sleep. She tortured herself and became very haggard. In short, he was conflicted, and the nausea went on and on. Although Qi Sheng hated Mu Yenluo very much, he often went to her for sex, but Mu Yenluo would cry and refuse him. But it caused his true love to harbor a grudge in her heart. Then, the evil supporting female lead began to frame the female lead. Her childhood sweetheart faked her pregnancy and spent all day in front of Mu Yenluo showing off their love and child, causing Mu Yenluo's heart to shift. The supporting female lead's belly didn't have the real one. Then, she plotted against Mu Yenluo to kill the child in her belly. The fake one in her belly naturally disappeared. When Qi Sheng learned of this, he was furious. He didn't listen to Mu Yenluo's explanation and directly threw her into the dungeon to be tortured. Mu Yenluo was tortured in the dungeon. Coincidentally, Qi Sheng's business had a little problem. He was busy solving the problem and forgot about Mu Yenluo in the dungeon. In the dungeon, Mu Yenluo was tortured by his true love. Her body was covered with all kinds of scars. The supporting female lead was jealous of Mu Yenluo's face and directly destroyed it. When Qi Sheng thought of Mu Yenluo was hanging on to her last breath. In addition, Mu Yenluo's face was ruined. Qi Sheng listened to his true love and sent Mu Yenluo to a manor thousands of miles away from the Qi residence. Mu Yenluo was sent away in such a heart-wrenching state. However, after Mu Yenluo left, Qi Sheng's longing for her accumulated more and more, to the point where he was on the verge of falling ill from lovesickness. Knowing that the cinnabar mole in his heart was so vicious, he decisively gave up on his true love and ran to find Mu Yenluo. However, Mu Yenluo had disappeared. Therefore, every time Mu Yenluo met a man, she would want to have such an unforgettable relationship. Ning Shu felt that Qi Sheng was even more hateful than Situ Qingyu and Luo Zhenyan. He used the method of boiling a frog in warm water to make Mu Yenluo fall in love with him. He took the route of attacking her heart. He used a gentle appearance to win Mu Yenluo's heart, but later on, he treated her cruelly. Although he later realized his feelings for Mu Yenluo paid a huge price. Her face was ruined and her snow-white skin was gone. It was really fucking miserable. Moreover, Mu Yenluo was indecisive and liked to torture herself when she encountered problems. It really made Ning Shu, a bystander, feel that his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys had all been moved. It was too fucking miserable. Ning Shu and Yuelan tidied up the room. A woman who looked like a steward walked in. Ning Shu said, "From today onwards, you will be young master's personal maid." Ning Shu, 0. How did she become Qi Sheng's personal maid with such an ugly appearance? Could it be that Qi Sheng still liked her in this state? Could it be that this was the attraction between the male and female leads? The plot always brought the male and female leads together. Nanny, what do personal maids have to do? Ning Shu looked at the steward nanny and asked shyly. The steward nanny spat at Ning Shu. Bah, you think too much. You only need to pour tea and water for young master and do some chores for him. Do you think you can sneak into young master's bed with such a look? Young master already has Miss Yufei in his heart. Just do your job well. If you have any other thoughts, young master will make you wish you were dead. Ning Shu pretended to be frightened. Yuelan immediately said indignantly, "What's wrong with my miss? My miss is as beautiful as a flower. Why do you look down on my miss so much? My miss is also the prime minister." Ugh, Ning Shu immediately covered Yuelan's mouth and said to the nanny in charge, "I'll remember. I'll definitely abide by my duties and serve the young master well. I'll make the young master comfortable and beautiful." The steward nanny hummed in acknowledgement. Ning Shu quickly handed over a silver ingot, making the steward nanny's eyes light up. "You have a bright future." Ning Shu immediately said shyly, "Thank you for your praise, nanny. I hope nanny will take care of me in the Qi residence." After the steward nanny left, Yuelan immediately said, Miss, what are you doing? You have to suffer so much to do this. We worked so hard to sell our bodies to bury our father and gave half of the money to that nanny. This servant's heart is bleeding. Your miss has her own plans. Ning Shu crossed her legs and said, You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.